Following the previous episode, Shenlang had utterly ruined Jenda, making the latter so enraged he almost suffered a myocardial infarction. Fortunately, he didn't die, but from that day on, the darkest days of his life truly began. A few days later, the situation within Jenda's grand army plummeted. Smallpox broke out, and soldiers collapsed in waves. 80 to 90% of the army was infected, corpses piled up, and the stench of death spread throughout the camp. Even the physician who claimed he could save half the men died from the disease. Smallpox spared no one. One moment they were alive, the next they were cold and gone. More tragically, the medicine in the Marquis Genuine's manor had been poisoned beforehand, crushing even the slightest hope. Outside the city, Shenlang yelled every day like a torture, "The food is poisoned, the water is poisoned, eat and you die, drink and you perish." Big Dumb stood beside him, no loudspeaker needed, yet his voice carried far and wide, echoing in perfect rhythm, "Smallpox, smallpox, smallpox." The soldiers inside the city, already famished and thirsty, now dared not eat or drink. Their immune systems weakened further, with no medicine and insufficient food, they even feared drinking water. The daily death toll continued to climb. Finally, the defending army's numbers dwindled. Seizing the opportunity, Shenlang's army advanced directly to the city gates, continuing their psychological warfare. They shouted loudly, "Brothers in the city, Shenlang is a divine physician who can cure smallpox. Shenlang is a divine physician who can cure smallpox." At the same time, dozens of steaming, fragrant cauldrons of medicinal water were pushed out in front of the formation. Divine medicine to cure smallpox, divine medicine to cure smallpox. Those who are quick will get some, those who are slow will miss out. Brothers who still want to live, hurry and come drink. Inside the city, Jenda heard every word clearly. Boiling with rage, he immediately ordered all uninfected personnel to defend the city. No one was allowed in or out. No entry, no exit. Anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy. But the Marquis Genuine's manor was vast, and the defending soldiers were insufficient. As night fell, groups of infected soldiers quietly used ropes to scale the walls and escape. Then, they ran to Shenlang's grand camp, incessantly begging, "Divine medicine. I need divine medicine. I need divine medicine. Please." And for every soldier who secretly left the city, a bowl of divine medicine was given. Without hesitation, they gulped it down. The moment the medicine reached their throats, before it even touched the bottom of their stomachs, they felt a startling change. They froze for 5 seconds, unable to utter a word. Just then, Shenlang approached and asked loudly, "Brothers, is it truly divine medicine?" A stunned soldier replied, "Indeed, the itching is gone. My body feels light, comfortable, and at ease." They all burst into joyous cheers, shouting, "It's truly divine medicine. It's truly divine medicine." Shenlang looked at their excitement, secretly delighted. This was no divine medicine at all, it was just traditional Chinese medicine with a bit of something extra. Upon drinking it, they would feel alert, and then paralyzed. Of course the itching was gone then, hey ha. The cheers echoed so far that even the soldiers high up on the city walls could hear them. Shenlang really has divine medicine, divine medicine. Immediately, without hesitation, the soldiers stripped off their armor and climbed down one by one. Let's go too. Jenda's army was completely unstable, trying every means to escape. At first, they only used ropes to climb down, but now they were directly trying to go through the main gate. Jenda's direct subordinates refused to open the gate, leading to a growing internal conflict. It ultimately escalated into a bloody massacre. The entire situation was completely out of control. The smallpox-infected soldiers furiously roared, "You guys got injections so you didn't get sick, but we're dying. We want to live. We want to live. Brothers, fight them with your lives." Their desire to live became intense. Anyone blocking their path was seeking death. Thus, the already dwindling army became even smaller. Jenda stood high on the city wall, his eyes hollow as he watched the chaotic internal conflict unfolding within his own grand camp. He had completely lost control of his own army. Jenda's limbs went limp. He felt as if all strength had been drained from his body and he collapsed. He looked up at the sky, his eyes vacant, muttering faintly, "It's over. It's fish. All loss. All loss." Suddenly a smoldering regret swelled within him like a festering wound. If only he hadn't been selfish at the beginning and had directly led his 20,000 troops out of White Night Pass to reinforce John Sham, then he would be a hero now. But humans are insatiable, greed leads to death, so why complain? The bitter truth was that he had provoked the wrong person, Shenlang. The more he thought, the angrier he became. His eyes turned bloodshot, twitching as if about to bleed. Veins pulsed clearly on his forehead. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a word, only a hoarse, choking growl from his throat in his extreme fury. Saliva dripped down his chin, mixing with the sweat pouring from him as if he had just bathed. Each drop rolled down his face, distorted by hatred. His trembling hand pressed against his cheek, trying to keep himself from screaming, smashing things, or going mad. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes was real. All his plans, all his calculations, all his sacrifices had collapsed and shattered like dust in a whirlwind. Hey, I hate too much, little wretch Shenlang, I will chop you into 100 pieces, 100 pieces. Swallowing his rage, Jenda turned to Shenlang. Longer, tell me, if I go to the capital city now to beg for forgiveness, will the king forgive me? Shenlang shrugged and shook his head decisively. No way. His Majesty is so petty, how could he forgive father? Hearing this, Jenda trembled in despair. This world is so vast, where shall we go? Shenlang then suggested going to the state of Chu. Even for 1,000 gold coins, the state of Chu would grant his father a title. Although he might not have military power, wealth and honor would not be an issue. Upon hearing this, Jenda, who had just been like a lifeless corpse, suddenly sprang up like a spring. Right, go to the state of Cho. Go to the state of Cho, Shenlang said. Father, let's go quickly. If we dress as ordinary soldiers and climb over the wall, Shenlang surely won't discover us. Jenda immediately nodded repeatedly. Okay, let's go at once. We'll go now. A moment later, as night fell, two figures quietly left the camp without fanfare or glory, only shame and bitterness. The two men, once renowned experts, now had to sneak along the cliff like dog thieves, not daring to breathe loudly, gripping with their hands and feet. Every step was a humiliation. 30 minutes later, both finally landed safely on the ground. Jenda stopped. He looked back, his eyes filled with resentment at the Marquis's genuine's manner, now shrouded in darkness. His eyes were full of regret, his hands clenched until veins bulged. Just a little more, and I would have replaced Sun Nan to become a great noble with a fiefdom and an army. My Gen family was just a little short of rising to power. Shenlang, remember this, from now on, it's either you or me. You dog Shenlang, one day I will chop you into 1,000 pieces. Thinking this, Jenda turned to Shenlang decisively. Longer, let's go to the state of Chu. However, suddenly, his stomach began to itch violently. His whole body went numb, and he collapsed to the ground, groaning faintly. What's happening? My stomach hurts so much. But Shenlang stood there, not panicked at all, but remarkably indifferent and emotionless, as if he had known this outcome for a long time. At that very moment, two figures emerged from the shadows, Shenlang and Princess Ningji. They walked leisurely as if watching a play. Jenda looked up, startled, his eyes blazing red as if about to explode. Shenlang, Ningji. Before he could fully grasp what was happening, Shenlang, his most beloved son, suddenly knelt down before Princess Ningji, trembling all over, bowing his head to the ground. Princess, I am following His Majesty's order to atone for my sins by rendering meritorious service. Atoning for my sins by rendering meritorious service. Jenda's entire body stiffened as if turned to stone. His heart felt squeezed. You poisoned me. Shenlang bowed his head deeper, his voice choked with helplessness. Father, I'm sorry. I had no other choice. His Majesty ordered me. From ancient times, loyalty and filial piety cannot be perfectly fulfilled. I can only sacrifice my family for the greater good. Good man, truly a good man. Applause, everyone. Without stopping, Shenlang continued to kneel, turning to Shenlang, his eyes gleaming with determination. Young Master Shen, you once said that my sister, Jen Hongqian, is in the Marquis Xuanmu's manor, right? From now on, we are in laws. I am willing to sacrifice my family for the greater good. I will atone for my sins by rendering meritorious service. Shenlang smiled slightly, slowly stepped forward, and squatted down, patting Shenlang's shoulder with satisfaction. You did well, little brother. Very good. We're brothers now, hey he. Jenda was in immense pain then, less from his stomach and more from his heart. Perhaps he could never have imagined, in 1,000 or 10,000 lifetimes, that he would one day be betrayed by his own beloved son. Jenda was so resentful, but he could do nothing. He was so furious that blood spurted from his mouth, a veritable geyser of authentic blood soup gushing out like a fountain in the dark night. For those who like blood soup, please come to Shenlang's house. Fresh hot, high quality, straight from Jenda. Limited edition. First come, first served. Even if you're slow, there's still some left. Brothers. Watching the scene of father and son turning against each other, Shenlang chuckled coldly to himself. He thought, this isn't the first time I've seen father and son turn against each other. There's Zhang Chong, no need to mention him. And Jin Heba and Tang Lun, who didn't hesitate to let their sons betray them for their sons to live, even willing to let their whole family be buried with them. As for the old scoundrel Sun Nan, he was utterly evil, yet a group of people were willing to die with him. But Shenlang, he betrayed Jenda not just for survival, but for wealth and glory, and thus poisoned him without hesitation. At the same time, Jenda continued to bleed, utterly shocked. He turned to question his son, why? We could have gone to the state of Chu. Shenlang didn't even look at him, calmly replying, I am loyal to the state of Yu, how could I become a traitor? But Shenlang saw through Shenlang's wolfish ambition and urged, tell the truth, Shenlang. Shenlang chuckled proudly, all right, With that, he turned to Jenda seriously. Father, going to the state of Chu would be too hard. Jenda was completely disheartened, his spirits plummeting. Yes, too hard. The state of Chu could give me a count title without power, not even money. My good son would then be worse than a dog, even a small official could bully him. Thinking this, he painfully suppressed his agony, struggling to speak. You betrayed your own father in the state of Yu, who would dare to use you anymore? Danlong calmly replied, Blackwater Station is willing to use me. The position of Blackwater Station commander was actually not a high condition, but precisely because it was not high, Zhenlong found it real. Zhenlong felt no remorse for his actions, secretly thinking, if I can betray my own father, what else can I not do? I am indeed the talent Blackwater Station needs. If there's no other path, being a Blackwater Station commander is a good position. At least it has power and can make others fear me. Suddenly Jenda burst into desperate laughter. Jenda, a brave man all my life, unexpectedly died by the hand of my own son, by the hand of the son I loved most. Foolish to die, why complain? You spent your whole life calculating others, but in the end, your own son calculated you back. Truly, you reap what you sow. When Jenda heard this, Zhenlong could no longer hold back and shot up to retort. Father, don't forget, every time there was danger, you always sent the suicide squad first, then it was my turn. Only when you were sure there was no danger would you show your face. Is that how you show special love for your children? Oh right, in your eyes, the most important thing is always yourself. At a critical moment, anyone can become a sacrifice, and of course, your son is no exception. With nothing left to deny, Jenda said in a deep, helpless voice, Zhenlong, do you think you'll survive if you betray me? Do you think Shenlang will spare you? The king likes him so much that if he kills you, the king will at most scold him a few words. You will surely die. Immediately, Zhenlong turned sharply and prostrated himself before Shenlang, trembling all over. Young Master Shen, I know I am wicked, despicable, and shameless. I even dared to betray my own father. What else can I not do? You surely won't trust me, but you cannot trust me, yet you absolutely must trust yourself. You are so strong, so intelligent, you can definitely control me like you control a dog. Shenlang pondered this, saying nothing. For Shenlang, killing Zhenlong now was as simple as weaving a basket, it was just a matter of whether he wanted to or not. Shenlang thought to himself, there's a good saying. One should not pull up weeds by the roots. But there's another saying. Sometimes, utilizing an enemy is more effective than an ally. Just then, Princess Ningji gently spoke. I once promised Zhenlong that I would let him live. Shenlang glanced at the princess, understanding that she was reminding him, but even if he really killed someone, she wouldn't stop him. Dismissing the thought after a few seconds, Shenlang flashed a bright smile and said, Congratulations, you get to live. Zhenlong wept with joy, kowtowing repeatedly like chopping wood, incessantly expressing his gratitude. Thank you for sparing my life, young Master Shen. Thank you, young Master Shen. Shenlang waved his hand, commanding, Go, Commander Zheng. Zhenlong bowed, stood up, and requested leave. Then he quickly approached the Blackwater Station warriors of the princess, greeting them warmly. I am Zhenlong, the new commander of the Blackwater Station. I hope you brothers will take care of me from now on. The Blackwater Station warriors were momentarily bewildered by his quick change of allegiance but quickly clasped their hands in return, greeting Commander Zheng. Even Shenlang hadn't expected Zhenlong to integrate so quickly. This Zhenlong truly had no self-respect, nor any inhibitions. But these Blackwater Station warriors also reacted quickly, it seemed they had seen many such things before. Seeing this, Jenda immediately switched to a state of desperate submission. He crawled on his knees to Shenlang, his voice trembling. Young Master Shen, I can also do what Zhenlong did. I can do it too. Shenlang was startled, completely unprepared for Jenda's move. He thought, what the heck? A dignified general suppressing the West, prostrating himself like a dog for survival. This father and son are truly top tier. At first, they dared to do anything for glory. Now, for survival, they dare to endure any humiliation. Jenda, Shenlang said, you know I have a peculiar preference. Jenda was bewildered, not understanding what Shenlang was talking about. Shenlang turned to Princess Ningji and said, Princess Ningji, I'm troubling you to help me. Ningji understood and stepped closer to Jenda, calmly saying, take off your lower armor for me. The atmosphere suddenly grew heavy. No matter how high Jenda's martial arts were, at this moment, he stood still, not resisting, slowly removing his lower armor with trembling hands. Each buckle, each layer of fabric was removed, as if stripping away a piece of his dignity. Finally, his face was as pale as paper, his eyes clouded. Perhaps his soul dimly guessed the outcome. As soon as Jenda finished undressing, Princess Ningji, without delay and with an unchanging expression, swung her sword and made a clean cut. Fresh blood splattered. And where she cut, perhaps everyone has already guessed. It stung to the core. As the sword fell, a hot item dropped to the ground with a thud. Yet, Jenda, to an unimaginable degree, didn't utter a single sound. He only grimaced slightly, holding his still bleeding groin with both hands, and turned to Shenlang, asking, "Young Master Shen, can you spare me now? Am I allowed to live now?" Shenlang truly got goosebumps at that moment, his hairs standing on end. He screamed internally, "What kind of freak is this? Castrated and not a single sound. This bastard is truly a super enduring king." He completely deflated my satisfaction from revenge. Seeing Shenlang's expression, Jenda's mind immediately raced. "Oh, I need to show some pain for him to agree." Immediately, he screamed loudly, "Oh, my life root, my life root." The excruciating, bone-chilling pain caused his heart rate to falter, his intestines to twist, and his fingers to cramp, his eyes rolling back. For a moment, he thought he had died, but no, death might have been more comfortable. The pain was so intense that poetry naturally flowed. His screams shook heaven and earth. Shenlang also had to admire Jenda's endurance. "You're truly incredible." After Jenda was chopped, the Blackwater Station warriors quickly moved in to stop his bleeding. The messy wound was stitched up with coarse thread, each needle piercing his flesh as if to remind him for the rest of his life that he was once a man. A warrior then took out chains, threaded them through his shoulder blades, tied his hands and feet, and locked him in a carriage to be escorted back to the capital city. Sitting in the carriage, Jenda, despite the immense pain, burst into maniacal laughter when he realized he was still alive. Survived the apocalypse. "Haha, I am alive, I am alive." Observing from a distance, Ningjie thought, the king hates Jenda so much he will surely execute him. Moreover, to avenge Shenlang, they will publicly interrogate Jenda and Lian Yongnian, surely condemning these two as traitors. "Jenda, you basically won't survive there, yet you're still laughing." She subtly glanced at Shenlang, who was still smiling triumphantly. "And this guy too. The king originally wanted him to return to the capital city early, but he still hasn't obeyed the decree. But never mind, the king won't do anything to him anyway. After all, he rendered great service." Afterward, Shenlang entered the Marquis Genuine's manor. The 20,000 troops in Jenda city were now reduced to just over 13,000, the rest had all died. But now, all of them were grateful for Shenlang's life-saving grace. Wherever Shenlang went, they prostrated themselves, expressing gratitude. "Thank you for saving our lives, Lord Shen. Lord Shen, you are magnanimous." Shenlang calmly walked among the kneeling masses, his eyes as deep as an abyss. He thought, the dead won't blame me, but the living will believe I saved them. But the storm didn't end there. Just as the echoes of victory were still lingering, another earth-shattering event occurred. The smallpox epidemic erupted in White Night Pass. Jenda, in an attempt to win over the people, had previously distributed food from the Marquis Genuine's manor to the populace. These people became infected after eating it, and the disease spread from 1 to 10, then 10 to 100, infecting every corner of the district. People died every day. The entire White Night Pass was in disarray, and people were terrified. At this time, news spread that Shenlang could cure smallpox. Therefore, every day countless people came to the main gate of the Marquis Genuine's manor, kneeling and begging, "Young Master Shen, please save us. Lord Shen, please save our lives. Bodhisattva Shen, please save us." Shenlang stood on the high city wall, his eyes cold, looking down at the crowd surging like ants beneath his feet. A faint, bitter smile played at the corner of his lips. How interesting. Many of these people once surrounded me. Now, facing death, they hide their hatred and beg me for salvation. How ridiculous. Below, the pleas grew increasingly urgent. "Lord Shen, you cannot stand by and watch us die. Heaven has a virtue of cherishing life, for the sake of your descendants and to accumulate virtue for your ancestors. Lord Shen, you cannot stand by and watch us die. Even a wolf's heart wouldn't be so cruel. Lord Shen, are you really just going to watch us die? How can you be like that?" Shenlang turned and left the city wall, coldly spitting out 2 words, "Fools." Just then, a general from the state of Jian rushed in to report, "Lord Shen, the people of White Night District are smashing the city gates, begging you to cure their disease." Shenlang paid no heed, coldly saying, "Order the archers to shoot them away. I, Shenlang, am very busy." "Yes, obey the order." Though his words were vicious and heartless, standing on the city wall, he was far from uncaring about the people below. On the contrary, he had painstakingly written tens of thousands of characters about how to prevent smallpox, how to quarantine, how to disinfect, how to administer medicine, and how to maintain the survival rate. Furthermore, he had already sent people to bring the medicine provided by the state of Jian to vaccinate the people of White Night District. Late at night, in the study of the Marquis's manor, Shenlang was still writing, his brush never stopping. At that moment, Zhang Chong entered. Shenlang looked up, his voice soft, "Master Zhang, you finally arrived." Shenlang handed Zhang Chong several books and said, "Master Zhang, the methods of preventing and curing smallpox are all in here. I've also arranged for the preventive medicine from the state of Jian to be brought over." Zhang Chong clasped his hands in return. "Young Master Shen, you have saved the lives of over 100,000 people in White Night District. Shenlang continued, "The matter of a living bodhisattva, just leave it to Master Zheng to do." Zheng Chong was slightly surprised. "Why doesn't young Master Shen do it personally and use my name instead?" Shenlang said, "I can absolutely save these people, but asking me to humble myself and show affection for them. Sorry, I can't do it. In my eyes, fools will always be fools. I don't want to be remembered in history, nor do I want to be granted marquisates or titles. Why should I curry favor with these people? I'm happy with myself, that's enough." Then Shenlang patted Zhang Chong's shoulder. "Master Zhang, you be the saint, I'll be the villain." After that, Shenlang directly ordered the blockade of White Night District, filling up all the wells, day and night. No one was allowed to step outside, and anyone who disobeyed would be locked up. He sent several thousand soldiers who had been infected but were cured to blockade every exit from White Night District, specifically to contain the epidemic within the White Night Pass. Seeing the stubborn people resisting orders being tied up, Shenlang thought, "At this moment, someone must play the villain, otherwise, the situation cannot be controlled. Let me be the villain until the end." Thus, within half a month, the smallpox epidemic in White Night District was completely controlled and did not spread further. Zhang Chong was respected by the people, while Shenlang was criticized by the world. When Shenlang left White Night District, he was spat upon. Thousands, tens of thousands of people cursed him. But that was the path Shenlang chose. He was used to playing the villain. What were these trivial matters of right and wrong? At the same time, King Ning Yuangshan received a report from White Night District. As he opened and read the report, the king's eyes widened in astonishment. The more King Ning Yuangshan read, the more surprised he became. Compassionate yet cold, never bowing to anyone, never bound by morality, never constrained by any rules. Who exactly does this young man resemble? Ooh. Then he slammed his hand on the table and laughed loudly. "Young man, you are truly capable. I, the king, admire you." The king turned to Eunuch Li and said, "Li Jun." Eunuch Li clasped his hands and replied, "Yes, your majesty." The king then issued a decree to blame Shenlang, scold him terribly for meh, then order him to return here. Don't cause any more trouble in Tianxi province. If he doesn't come back, tie him up and bring him to Mei. At the same time, he issued another decree, ennoble Zheng Chong as a viscount. You think of a good title for him. Li Jun immediately obeyed. The king continued, "I hear the crown prince has a golden magnolia sculpture." Mentioning this, Li Jun turned pale and stammered. This matter the king cut him off before he could finish. "Go get it for me. What kind of decorum is this? Get it back, clean it thoroughly, and send it to Shenlang." Li Jun clasped his hands and replied, "As your majesty commands." Go quickly and issue a decree telling that scoundrel to return to the capital city. If he doesn't want to, tie him up and bring him back. Eunuch Li was astonished. "Your majesty, you've already said that once, haven't you?" But he dared not speak further, quickly accepting the command. Yes, just then a man ran in, urgently announcing, "Urgent report, 800 Li urgent, the state of Chu is withdrawing its troops, the state of Chu is withdrawing its troops." King Ning Yuangshan heard this and thought to himself, after Sun Nan's main force was annihilated, the state of Chu should have retreated. Using encirclement as a pretense was actually just a play, waiting for Jenda to cause more trouble. Now Jenda is also defeated, so the state of Chu has no choice but to withdraw. They can't let it escalate into a full-scale war. Damn it, this Shenlang is truly a monster. He led only 200 people into White Night District and not only annihilated Sun Nan but also defeated Jenda. He's truly formidable. Zhen Chu, who once commanded the wind and rain, ultimately brought about his own destruction. He didn't die from a conspiracy, nor did he fall in battle, but he fell because he dared to provoke Shenlang. He flipped faster than a rice paper pancake, kneeling before Shenlang, begging for his life. Well, he got to live, but it was a life worse than death. From that moment, he lost his manhood in a flash, his family jewels gone in an instant. He was then escorted back to the capital. Meanwhile, Shenlang, under the guise of Zhang Chong, saved the people. In public, he acted as if he couldn't care less, but behind the scenes, he secretly gave Zhang Chong the methods for preventing and curing smallpox. As a result, the smallpox epidemic was quickly stamped out. Scene changed to the royal palace of the Chu kingdom. The king of Chu held a report, his face gradually turning pale. His hand trembled slightly, each character was like a hammer blow to his heart and mind. The more he read, the more shocked he became, a chill running down his spine. A wave of despair he couldn't put into words washed over him. A waste, a complete waste, a great loss. Who on earth was this Shenlang? First, he eliminated Su Nan, and now Zhen Chu. 2 of his key chess pieces had fallen in succession. How could the Yu kingdom have such a genius? Immediately, the king of Chu issued an edict, dispatching a delegation of envoys to the Yu kingdom to negotiate a ceasefire. "We have already captured several fortresses, we cannot retreat. While you're at it, tell Ning Yuangshan to compensate us with several 100,000 gold coins." The eunuch receiving the order, clasped his hands and replied, "Understood." The king narrowed his eyes, his voice low and carrying a hidden chill. "Remember, your attitude must be firm. Furthermore, after arriving in the Yu Kingdom, you can contact the Wu Kingdom first. With our two nations joining forces to apply pressure, I'm not afraid Ning Yuengshan won't. Promise. The King of Wu needs our support right now, so the envoy's attitude can be a bit more arrogant. What cannot be gained on the battlefield must be won through negotiation. Nothing is impossible to bribe or coerce, as long as one has enough cunning and power." At the same time the Chu delegation entered the Yu Kingdom, on the Wu-Yu border, the King of Wu had just received an urgent secret report. He held the scroll, his sharp eyes scanning the words that seemed to burn his heart. Shenlang, that name appeared repeatedly with shocking victories. He had defeated Su Nan, defeated Zhen Chu, and even defeated the great army of Wu Mu with such a large disparity in numbers. Each victory was like a whip lashing the face of the Wu Kingdom, sending a cold shiver through the King of Wu. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao was still rampaging through the Wu Kingdom, causing panic among the people, scaring them out of their wits. The King of Wu clenched the report, his hands trembling slightly, sweat beading on his forehead. His eyes were filled with failure and fear. In his heart, he screamed with unwillingness, but his advisor, Li Jie, sighed bitterly to himself. "We've lost. I must compromise with the King of Yu." Not long ago, he, the King of Wu, had defeated Ning Yuengshan in the Great Hunting Assembly. His prestige was sky high, his fame widespread. Back then, the world looked at the Wu Kingdom as a rising tide, while the Yu Kingdom teetered on the brink of destruction. Ning Yuengshan was besieged on all sides, like a stranded fish waiting to be caught. However, the tables had turned. In just a few short months, the situation had completely reversed. The Yu Kingdom was completely victorious, while the Wu Kingdom faced disaster. The King of Wu's heart itched as if it were being cut, completely unreconciled. He muttered to himself, "Do I have to bow to the Yu Kingdom like my father did? What would the King of Yu demand? A large compensation? Or ceding more land?" The shame was a silent knife twisting deep in his heart, causing him to suddenly stand up, his eyes blazing with fire. He spoke in a loud, resolute voice, "An envoy must be sent." Wu Zhai immediately knelt, his hands clasped, and said clearly, "Your Majesty, I am willing to go as an envoy to the Yu Kingdom." However, the King of Wu shook his head, his voice deep but firm. "No. No envoy is needed. I will personally negotiate with Ning Yuengshan." The moment he spoke, all the ministers below were stunned, their faces pale. They immediately broke into a clamor of opposition. "Your Majesty, absolutely not. It cannot be done. Your Majesty is a respected sovereign, the master of a nation. How can you walk into danger? What if Ning Yuengshan loses his mind and holds your Majesty for ransom? That would be a catastrophe." Wu Ji secretly thought to himself that even though they had lost this battle, the great king had not lost his spirit, and was still full of fighting desire. But for the king of a country, to enter the territory of an enemy was indeed too risky. Ignoring everyone's objections, the King of Wu was resolute. "It is decided. I will personally go to meet the King of Yu. That will make his halo of victory even more brilliant." The King of Wu made his own decision, leading a few officials across the border towards Ning Yuengshan's temporary palace. The Prime Minister of the Yu Kingdom was also frightened. A Yu general stepped forward, and seeing the dragon's seal on the banner, his face immediately paled, and a chill went down his spine. He unconsciously took half a step back, whispering in astonishment, "This is not according to protocol." The King of Wu said, "Please trouble the general to report to the King of Yu that his junior, Wu Kai, has come to pay his respects." The Yu general froze for a moment, then bowed deeply, his voice trembling slightly. "This subordinate will go and report immediately." At this time, Ning Yuengshan was practicing calligraphy in his study. His hand still held the brush, but the ink strokes were erratic, reflecting his unsettled mood. This was partly because Shenlang's arrogant words had reached his ears. Shenlang had said that the king's calligraphy was not bad, but it lacked a noble air. "When I have a free day, I will teach him a new style of calligraphy, guaranteed to have unparalleled charisma." The more Ning Yuengshan thought about it, the more annoyed he became. "That rotten brat, he speaks without shame. Your poetic talent is unparalleled, this I admit. But in calligraphy, do you have any standing to compare with me?" He thought his own writing was indeed not bad. He really should summon Shenlang here to let him open his dog eyes and see. Shenlang's calligraphy was too casual, truly not worth mentioning. He didn't know where he got the confidence to dare to comment on his calligraphy. Truly arrogant and without any self-awareness. Then, he forcefully pulled out the calligraphy he had just written. The paper was still fragrant with fresh ink, the strokes majestic like flying dragons and dancing phoenixes. He called out loudly, "Take this to Shenlang, shove it in his face and let him know what real calligraphy is." Eunuchla could only click his tongue, thinking to himself that his Majesty's competitiveness was too strong. However, he didn't dare to say half a word. He could only bow low, his hands taking the calligraphy, his voice respectful. As you command. This servant will send your majesty's masterpiece immediately. Just then, a general rushed in from outside, hastily kneeling and reporting, Your Majesty, the King of Wu is here. His face froze for a few breaths, his eyes showing extreme astonishment. What? Wu Qi came in person. A great wave immediately rose in his heart. According to official protocol, if the monarch of a country wanted to visit another, they had to send an envoy first to negotiate and set a time, then wait for the other side's formal invitation. Only then could they come legitimately. Wu Qi, you skipped the entire procedure and brazenly brought your royal entourage right to my doorstep. But in a flash, his astonishment turned to delight. The corners of Ning Yuanxian's mouth curled up slightly, a triumphant glint in his eyes. But this is also a good thing. If the King of Wu has come to visit, it proves he admits his defeat. This is a diplomatic victory for my Yu kingdom. 12 years ago, the old King of Wu did not take the initiative to visit but negotiated with me at the border. That time, the King of Wu had to cede 9 counties to the Yu kingdom. Should I summon the military, and the old ministers here to witness this glorious victory, and establish my authority over the King of Wu? At the same time, the King of Wu was entering the temporary palace. He had prepared himself for humiliation. Each footstep on the stone floor seemed to strike directly at his crumbling self-esteem. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, but he tried to maintain a calm expression. Only in his heart was a turbulent undercurrent. Everyone knew about Ning Yuanxian's vanity. His previous failure at the hunting assembly had cost him all his face. Now that the Yu kingdom was victorious and he had come to beg, it was like offering his head for humiliation. The price of peace might be his entire dignity. If Ning Yuanxian values face and vanity so much, then I will try my best to satisfy him. I am the monarch of a country, and I have come to compromise with him. Ning Yuanxian, you better not push your luck. The King of Wu calculated in his heart. Being ridiculed by the people of the Yu kingdom, I can bear it. Having to personally beat a wooden drum to request an audience, I can do it. Personally pouring tea for the King of Yu, I won't shed a single tear. But there is one thing I absolutely will not back down from. Compensation, we can discuss, but it cannot exceed 500,000 gold coins. As for setting land, don't even dream about it. Not even half a county. Even if I have to kneel, these legs must stand on the land of the Wu kingdom. Not an inch of territory is allowed to disappear under the name of peace. Soon after, the King of Wu had penetrated deep into the palace. Each step on the marble floor felt heavy, as if he were walking to his execution. However, as soon as he stepped over the threshold, the scene that met his eyes made him stop in his tracks, as if a bucket of cold water had been thrown on his head. There was no grand army arrayed to intimidate him, no 100 officials standing in attendance to scrutinize him, no ceremonial horns and drums thundering like an ovation. Before him was just a spacious hall with warm lighting, tea already served, and the light fragrance of incense wafting through the air. It looked no different from an intimate banquet. The King of Wu's jaw dropped, completely shocked. He wanted to scream, what is this? Isn't this supposed to be a stage to humiliate me in front of all the officials? Why does this look like a housewarming party? Seeing the King of Wu's slightly tense expression, Ning Yuanxian took the initiative to break the silence, smiling elegantly and saying, long time no see. Wu Qi immediately clasped his hands and bowed. Your junior, Wu Qi, pays his respects to the King of Yu. Ning Yuanxian waved his hand gently, his voice deep but not lacking in warmth. King of Wu, there is no need for that. In terms of seniority, although you are younger than me, we are both monarchs of a country, and should be equals. Hearing this, Wu Qi quickly changed his tone, polite but firm. Wu Qi pays his respects to royal brother. Ning Yuanxian immediately caught on, his face beaming as if meeting a long-lost relative, and said loudly, Brother Wu, you are truly heroic and talented at such a young age. 2 days ago, I sent an envoy to invite you to visit my Yu kingdom, and today you are already here. This truly makes me overjoyed. The King of Wu also played along, a bright smile on his face, his voice a mixture of excitement and relief. As soon as I received royal brother's invitation, my heart longed day and night to see you again. This is truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. If I have caused any inconvenience to royal brother, please allow me to express my gratitude in advance. The two looked at each other and smiled, but in their hearts, they both knew one was acting to save face, while the other was secretly sharpening the daggers for the real negotiation. Yunichlal, standing by, watched the scene of the 2 monarchs shaking hands and calling each other brother, and his eyes gradually turned cold. This brat clearly came running here on his own, and now he's acting as if our Yu kingdom invited him. On the other side, the 2 sworn brothers were still deeply immersed in their act of international friendship. Brother, you are the honored guest. As the guest, let me lead the way. I wouldn't dare. Royal brother is the host. How can I walk ahead? It is only proper for you to lead. The 2 of them laughed with complete insincerity, but Ning Yuanxian still maintained his royal demeanor, lightly patting the King of Wu's sleeve, his voice deep and full of meaning. Since you are being so polite, Let us walk together, side by side, so that the world can witness the deep friendship between our two nations. After that, the king of Yu held a banquet to welcome the king of Wu. The two only talked about poetry and literature, not a single word about state affairs. The king of Wu several times praised Shenlang's poetic talent, and the king of Yu immediately downplayed it, his tone 3 parts indifference and 7 parts condescension, just like elders from two families talking. After the banquet, the two sides finally got down to business. The one-on-one negotiation had no wine, no music, no pleasantries, only interests, calculations, and territory. The king of Wu was the first to speak, his voice low, but resolute. Royal brother, what will it take for Bian Shao to withdraw his troops? Ning Yuanxian smiled coldly. So, what price is the king of Wu offering? Wu Qi said, a public ceremony where from now on, the Yu kingdom is the elder brother, and the Wu kingdom is the younger brother. Or reparations of 200,000 gold coins. Standing by, Yu Nuchla's face did not change, but a storm was already brewing in his heart. He silently cursed, how absurd. You can even utter such conditions. Wu Kai, do you think the Yu kingdom is a tea house at the head of the village? You, king of Wu, conspired to seize the Leizhou archipelago of the Yu kingdom without a word, and sent 30,000 troops to attack Raging Tide City. Not only that, you also led 30,000 troops south to press against Shangji City, forcing our king to personally lead the campaign. If the Yu kingdom had lost this time, you, king of Wu, would have taken a huge bite. You would not only want us to acknowledge that the Leizhou archipelago belongs to you, but you would also want us to return at least 5 counties, right? Now that the Wu kingdom has been utterly defeated, with white surrender flags flying like falling autumn flowers, you only offer 20,000 gold coins. Dream on, you dog. Unexpectedly, Ning Yuanxian stood up abruptly. King of Wu, I don't need your compensation, nor do I need you to save land. Bian Shao can withdraw his troops. The statement was like a thunderclap on a clear day. Wu Kai was immediately startled, his eyes wide with astonishment. Then what does royal brother want? Ning Yuanxian smiled brightly and said, an alliance. From now on, our two nations, Yu and Wu, are brotherly neighbors. There is no elder or younger brother. We are equal. Wu Kai's mouth fell open, his mind completely blown. His whole body felt as if a basin of ice-cold water had been poured over his heart. He screamed internally, an alliance. The king of Yu won 2 consecutive battles and yet he wants an alliance with me. Ning Yuanxian was not too surprised by the king of Wu's reaction. He thought to himself, although the Wu kingdom has been defeated, the Chu kingdom is still a major power. If the Wu kingdom allies with the Chu kingdom, how can my Yu kingdom survive? Thinking this, he continued, King of Wu, I know that you and your father have always considered the loss of the 9 counties a humiliation. There is not a moment when you do not want to take them back, not a day when you do not want to wash away the shame. Now you don't need to worry. We too will join forces to defeat the Chu kingdom first. You can also take back those 9 counties from the Chu kingdom. At that moment, a large map was presented by a handmaiden. Ning Yuanxian stood up, personally pointing at the map, his voice as clear as a bronze bell. Brother, whichever 9 counties you want, just circle them here. The king of Wu was now being thrown from one shock to another, his heart in extreme turmoil, screaming silently, what is this? Just now we were talking about peace, now he's demanding an alliance, and now he's drawing up a map to divide the Chu kingdom. He broke out in a cold sweat, but his reason was still clear enough to understand that this was the real scheme. The alliance was just a pretext, the real goal was to annex the Chu kingdom and pull the Wu kingdom in as a strategic ally. The Yu kingdom wanted to pacify the Nano kingdom and stabilize the Tianxi province, then rest and recuperate. And this proposal from the king of Yu was indeed feasibly a Wu-Yu alliance to attack Chu. But didn't his Wu kingdom also need to rest and recuperate? Thinking of this, the king of Wu immediately made his decision. The two sides shook hands and sealed the deal. The king of Wu said, Royal brother, from now on, the two nations of Wu and Yu are a brotherly federation. Ning Yuanxian said, from now on, the two nations of Wu and Yu will stand shoulder to shoulder. Just like that, the two countries quickly signed a two-sided agreement. On the white side, it was stated that the two nations of Wu and Yu would be brothers, with eternal friendship and non-aggression. The dark side, however, was the secret pact for Wu and Yu to punish Chu. The next day, at the border of the two countries, a high platform was erected. Below were hundreds of civil and military officials and tens of thousands of troops in formation, stretching for several miles. On the platform, the two kings, wearing dragon robes, stood side by side under the sky. In front of the civil and military officials, in front of the tens of thousands of troops, the two kings signed the Wu-Yu alliance treaty. The moment the brush fell, the chicken was killed for the oath. As soon as he signed, the king of Wu felt a flicker of anxiety. Although it was said to be a secret pact, the news would spread throughout the world within a month of signing. The two nations of Wu and Yu, originally sworn enemies, were now joining hands in an alliance. On the third night after Shenlang left White Knight Prefecture, he finally received his first visitor. It was none other than the heir of the Earl of Wun's mansion, the thick-skinned Xu Pan, who came to request an audience at the post station where Shenlang was staying. Xu Pan entered, clasped his hands, and bowed respectfully. Shenlang watched him, smirking inwardly. A few months ago, this was the same guy who followed the hidden Yuan society, chasing down the Jin family for debts like a lone shark, pushing them to the brink. Now, he was wearing a smile as bright as the August moon. What a load of crap. But the history ran deeper than that. 20 years ago, Earl Jinyu had borrowed 1 million gold coins from the Xu family to hire 10,000 soldiers and a mighty fleet to eliminate the Nine Heavens danger pirates. The result was a total wipeout of the army. From then on, the Jin family fell into dire straits, one disaster after another. When it came to betrayal, the Xu family had stabbed the deepest knife into the Jin family's back, even deeper than the Su clan. And the funny thing was, the Jin family had once been the saviors of the Xu family. In the end, the Xu family sold them out without blinking an eye. This act was nothing short of a shameless betrayal of their benefactors. At least the Su clan had waited until Jin Mulan announced the annulment of the engagement before truly turning hostile. Xuqi, the Earl of Wun and Xu Pan's father, was the king's #1 confidant, and the head of the entire national intelligence system. This family not only held great power but also had deep roots everywhere. One of the 6 grandmasters, Yan Nanfei, the leader of the South Sea Sword sect, was also a member of the Xu family. And the South Sea sect belonged to the Blackwater Terrace, an incredibly formidable underground intelligence organization. To put it bluntly, the Xu family was far more dangerous than they appeared. Previously, whenever Xu Pan appeared before the Jin family, his attitude was always cold and arrogant, as if he were a cut above them. But today, his face showed a hint of timidity. Although it was just an act, his broad smile couldn't be hidden. "Congratulations, brother-in-law, on achieving 9 immortal merits," he began, fawning over him. Shenlang gave a faint smile in return, not bothering to say a word. Xu Pan, unabashed, continued, "Brother-in-law, on your way to the capital this time you'll surely pass through Ling County, right? His Highness, the third prince, would like to invite you for a meal and has specially sent me to extend the invitation." Hearing this, Shenlang gestured for Xu Pan to sit down, thinking to himself, "The last time I succeeded in my mission to the Jian Kingdom, the third prince also sent someone to try and win me over, but his attitude was very indifferent. This time, he seems much more sincere, even sending his close confidant, Xu Pan." Shenlang said, "Must I go?" Pan replied, "Of course not, it's entirely up to you, brother-in-law. It's just that His Highness the Third Prince is truly eager for talent. Brother-in-law, I know I've acted poorly in the past, but I had no choice. Our Xu family must obey the sacred edict. We do whatever the king commands." Hearing this bullshit, Shenlang cursed internally. As if, was your Xu family's betrayal of the Jin family 20 years ago also the king's order? While Xu Pan was still rambling on, he said, "Of course, I understand it will be difficult for you to forgive the Xu family, but time heals all wounds. Now, there's something I think you'll definitely want to know. Do you know the true identity of Ku Tihuan? His name is Xu Yichen, and he is the sworn brother of Qiu Zhaoyan. Therefore, he is one of the crown prince's people. His assassination attempt on Earl Xuanwu of the Jin family was the crown prince's order." Shenlang was shocked. "What? The crown prince dared to send someone to assassinate my father-in-law?" Xu Pan calmly continued, "Brother-in-law Shen, we have a common enemy. Why don't we stand on the same side? I know my sister, Xu Li, was ignorant before and caused great harm to the Jin family, but the marriage alliance between the Xu and Jin families can still continue." Then, he waved his hand and called out, "Menger, come here." Following Xu Pan's gesture, a beautiful and innocent young woman, as ethereal as a cloud, walked in. Xu Pan immediately introduced her. "This is my biological sister, Xu Ming. She is the jewel most cherished by my father. The heir, Jin Muchen, is exceptionally talented and famous throughout the Yu Kingdom. He is a perfect match for my sister. Xu Ming, how about we arrange a marriage between the two of you?" Shenlang said, "Miss Xu Ming, Jin Muchen isn't as handsome as me, you know. Do you really want to marry him?" He thought to himself that in terms of looks and gentleness, the girl before him was indeed superior to Xu Li. When asked, Xu Ming blushed crimson and shyly replied, I have secretly seen Brother Muchen before. I like him very much." Shenlang said, "Oh, well that's wonderful. But I can't make the decision on this matter. I need to report back to my father-in-law and mother-in-law." Xu Pan clasped his hands and replied, Of course. His Highness the Third Prince is waiting for you, brother-in-law. When you pass through Ling County, you must meet him." I will try my best. Then I shall take my leave." Xu Meng politely curtsied and said softly, "Goodbye, brother Shenlang." The next day, Shenlang continued his journey. In the evening, he once again rented out the entire post station. Previously, the officials at the post stations would avoid him like the plague, but now, everywhere Shenlang went, local officials vied to curry favor with him, respectfully greeting him from dozens of miles away. They fawned over him with a level of care that even a prefect had never received. Quick, serve the dishes for City Lord Shen. Any delay and you'll have me to answer to. Yes, sir. After a hearty meal, Shenlang staggered back to his room with a belly as tight as a drum. Just as he reached the door, he saw Sword King Li Kankyu waiting for him, a mysterious look on his face. He leaned in and whispered, "There's someone in your room." A woman. Hearing this, Shenlang's eyes lit up. He thought, it must be my darling Milan. She knows I've been holding back for too long, and has come to comfort my lonely, empty little soul. I'm coming. With that thought, Shenlang shot into the room like an arrow, a foolish grin on his face. But as soon as he stepped inside, the smile froze in midair. Before him was a stunning beauty with a slender figure and alluring curves, a true city toppling belle. The woman spoke gently, her voice as sweet as honeyed sugar cane. Lord Shen, you've arrived. I have been waiting for a long time. Ju Pan must have already met with you, but I believe you haven't agreed to anything. Shenlang's excitement deflated. He replied perfunctorily, Miss Chiu, why are you here? Chiu Joyan slowly stood up and replied, His Highness the Crown Prince greatly admires you, my lord. Truly admires you. I know there have been misunderstandings between you and the Crown Prince in the past, but misunderstandings can be resolved, can't they? Shenlang replied, Kutivwan assassinated my father-in-law. Can such a big misunderstanding be resolved? The Crown Prince treats my wife, Jin Milan, as his personal property. Is that also a misunderstanding? If such dirty tricks can be brushed aside with the two words a misunderstanding, then what need is there in this world to distinguish between right and wrong, loyal and treacherous? Hearing this, Chiu Jiaoyan smiled as if she had expected it. Of course it can. Then, she gently let go, and the thin silk dress clinging to her body slipped down like flowing water, silently falling from her soft shoulders. Underneath, there wasn't a single thread of clothing. Her body, as white as snow and smooth as jade, was revealed without any concealment, pure yet captivating, naked as a freshly molted cicada. This woman was bold. The moon rises to its peak, the moon whines, I am here waiting, please come and fall. Then, she said softly, Lord Shen, a spring night is worth 1,000 gold pieces. Let's not waste it. We can talk about everything else later. Seeing Shenlang's lack of reaction, she moved closer to him, her body completely bare. What was most at a time like this? Chiu Jiaoyan was a great beauty, but not an ordinary one. She possessed a bewitching beauty that was shocking, and she also exuded a noble and proud aura, like a fairy who had strayed into the moral world. She was bewitching to a degree, noble to a fault, and arrogant as Shenlang lay. Shenlang, a genuine scumbag, had been pent up for over a month. Yet when she moved to kiss him, he jerked back. As if electrocuted. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he had principles. Despite being a scumbag, Shenlang had only slept with 4 women so far, and all 4 were as pure as spring water, as clear as morning dew on the grass. This miscellaneous item, Shenlang couldn't care less. Seeing Shenlang avoid her like the plague, Chiu Jiaoyan was bewildered. Lord Shen, do you find me not beautiful enough? Shenlang quickly waved his hands and explained, Miss Chiu, you were once my wife's senior martial sister. That identity is very appealing to me, but I'm afraid you've poisoned the wine. Chiu Jiaoyan's expression changed in an instant, as if a bucket of ice water had been thrown in her face. What Shenlang had just said was not only poisonous but also incredibly sour, the kind of thing an ordinary person couldn't even imagine saying. Usually, when you hit someone, you avoid the face. But Shenlang didn't hold back at all. He tore away her facade without a shred of mercy. Ever since she had the support of the hidden Yuan society, Chiu Jiaoyan was used to being praised like a treasure, cherished like a flower. Now, being slapped in the face like this was like rubbing salt in her wounds. And Shenlang's mouth was simply too venomous. So poisonous that even the sharp-tongued women at the market would have to bow down in defeat. Shenlang thought to himself, you are a member of the hidden Yuan society and carry some secret mission. How could I dare to touch you? After taking several deep breaths, Chiu Jiaoyan gradually regained her composure. Her darkened face suddenly brightened like a flower blooming in early spring. She gave a charming smile, her eyes sparkling as if with rippling water, her voice bewitching to the bone. Lord Shen, whether that place of mine is poisonous or not, won't you know just by having a little taste? Although his mind was hazy, and he was desperate to the point of madness, Shenlang still managed to dodge to the side, his face surprisingly serious. Senior Sister Juo, I can't. That thing has been tasted by too many people. Who knows how much saliva, or even urine, has touched it. It's unsanitary. It's really not to my taste. My little brother isn't the type to eat just anything, you know. Haha. These words from Shenlang were truly venomous to the bone. Even Jiu Jiaoyan couldn't stand it anymore. Her usually enchanting face instantly darkened, her eyes bloodshot with killing intent. Her smile vanished as if it had never existed. She sat down silently, picked up her dress, each movement slow and full of pride, and put her clothes back on. She spoke softly, her voice not loud but cold to the core. Lord Shen, do you know what is the most vague and illusory thing in this world? Shenlang replied nonchalantly, the wind. Because sometimes it blows this way, and sometimes it blows that way. Chuo Jiaoyan said, human feelings are the same. Today you love someone, tomorrow you can turn your back without a second glance. There are those who are devoted for a lifetime, and there are those who change their hearts faster than they change their clothes. It's like seeing a cute puppy. At first, you hug and cuddle it, but a few days later, it's just a dog, no longer interesting. Was she secretly implying to Shenlang that the king was fickle? Today you are favored and lifted to the clouds, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. Shenlang understood the implication and said casually, oh, so what? What does that have to do with anything? Chuo Jiaoyan sneered. It seems Lord Shen has really taken flight. I hope what's about to happen will help you see yourself clearly again. Farewell, Lord Shen. Sweet dreams. After saying that, she scurried away. Shenlang said, Jiaoyan, the matter of you sending Ku Tuan to assassinate my father-in-law, I will not let it go. I will definitely slander you in front of His Majesty. He corrected himself. No, I will report you. Chuo Jiaoyan turned back. Slightly, a faint smile on her lips, her eyes seemingly unconcerned. Whatever, Lord Shen. If you want to report me, go ahead. As long as you make it to the capital in time. When you pass through Lang County, don't stop. Who knows, there might be a surprise waiting for you in the capital. 2 days later, Shenlang passed through Lang County, where the third prince was stationed. He did not go to pay his respects to the third prince, Ningkai, but the other party took the initiative to find him. Master, the third prince is here to visit. Shenlang was surprised. The third prince came to see me in person. This should be a good show. Ningkai had studied martial arts with 3 masters, Grandmaster Yan Nanfei, Zhang Yao, and the master of the Evil Sea Pavilion. It could be said that the third prince's martial arts were extremely high. Shenlang quickly stepped outside to welcome the VIP. Ningkai frowned and said, Shenlang, what can the crown prince give you that I cannot? Shenlang was direct and replied bluntly, revenge. He thought to himself, what the hell? You're not the crown prince, why are you using the royal with me? But since the king hasn't said anything, who am I to speak up? Oh, to hell with it. Ningkai continued, you and the Shu family have such a deep-seated hatred. Can it really not be resolved? Shenlang replied nonchalantly, it cannot. Ningkai said, but even in revenge, there must be an order. Hearing this, Shenlang thought, does His Highness mean I should take revenge on the crown prince first? Join forces with him to overthrow the crown prince, and deal with the Shu family later. With this thought, Shenlang spoke, Your Highness the third prince, you are very formidable, and you make me feel awed. But I would rather be teammates with a pig than share a blanket with someone who dreams of a different path. Ningkai sighed, all right, I understand. From tonight onwards, we are enemies. But today, we can still drink and talk together. Shenlang replied, Your Highness, your wine isn't poisoned, is it? Hearing this, Ningkai's face immediately changed, turning from white to purple as if blood had rushed to his head. His eyes looked like they were about to shoot fire, and he clenched his teeth so hard they made a grinding sound. His whole body trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the surging rage that was like a fierce wave. Seeing this, Shenlang felt the air turn cold, and quickly tried to defuse the situation. Haha, just kidding, I'm just a person who likes to joke. Continuing from the previous chapter, that woman, Chuo Jiaoyan, tried the same old trick, using her beauty to seduce Shenlang. But unfortunately for her, she wasn't up to par, the pun was too shallow to drown a dragon. Before Shenlang even had a chance to visit, the third prince, Ningkai, had personally come to meet him. His intention was as clear as day, to pull Shenlang to his side and join forces to overthrow the crown prince. However, Shenlang immediately refused. Afterward, the two sat at the wine table. Shenlang raised the cup before him, and drained it in one gulp without a word. Ningkai also raised his glass and, without any polite toasts, simply downed it. Then, neither said another word to the other, just silently drinking. The two sat there in a quiet confrontation, a mix of respect and underlying vigilance. They respected each other, but they absolutely disliked each other. Because in the eyes of both, the other was a formidable opponent, not to be underestimated, but also not to be trusted. As the night grew late, the third prince, Ningkai, dusted off his robes and stood up. There was no parting advice, no farewell. But everyone understood very well that from that moment, the two had officially become enemies. If one day they were to face each other with swords drawn, there would be no need to ask why or to blame for what reason. As soon as Ningkai left, Shenlang fell into deep thought. In reality, Ningkai didn't expect me to become his devoted ally. He just wanted to form a casual, loose alliance to deal with the crown prince first, but I refused. And that means the situation to come will be incredibly delicate. In the eyes of the third prince and the crown prince, I am not yet qualified to join their high-stakes game. The assassination of Jin Qiu by Ku Tifwan was like adding fuel to the fire of conflict between the crown prince and Shenlang. For someone like Shenlang, this incident could absolutely become a weapon to attack the crown prince. But would the crown prince sit back and watch? Absolutely not. The crown prince would not wait passively. He would definitely act first to seize the initiative, dragging Shenlang into his battlefield, and leaving him no time to counterattack. Something must have already happened in the capital. The opponent has started to act. The question is, what is happening, and who is making the move? And next, which way will the situation turn? The next morning, Shenlang dragged his body back to the capital. The Jin family's private mansion was burned to a crisp, as if it had never existed. Jin Muchen and Little Binger were now crammed into Ningzhen's mansion, while the Grand Ambassador, Yu Mengzi's, had hurried back to his country to deal with the matter of Princess Ningyan's broken engagement. The entire capital was as deserted as an empty temple. Even the city guard dogs couldn't be bothered to bark. The last time Shenlang returned from his mission to the Jian Kingdom, he had achieved a great merit, bringing glory to the court. That day, his triumphant return was met by a sea of people, flags waving in the sky, and 10,000 citizens cheering. The king himself had organized a large-scale reception ceremony. Shenlang was then seen as the hero of the entire capital, a light in a time of chaos. But this time was different. This time, his merits were even greater. He had eliminated the Su clan and beheaded Zheng Qiu, severing two dark forces that had once manipulated the entire court. It could be said that he had stopped a flood and saved the city, single-handedly reviving the nation's fortune. It wouldn't even be an exaggeration to call him a national hero. However, when Shenlang returned to the capital this time, the scene was eerily silent. There was no welcoming ceremony, no citizens waiting by the roadside, no flags waving. The king did not organize any reception, and everything was quiet. Moreover, the king was still at his northern palace, and had not yet returned. When he reached the Xuanwu gate, Shenlang even had to queue in a long line and present his papers like a commoner to be allowed in. When it was his turn, the guard captain looked Shenlang up and down and asked in a disbelieving tone, "From White Knight Prefecture?" Shenlang nodded. The captain's face went deathly pale. He took 3 steps back and shouted, "Everyone, stand still, men, surround them." Instantly, over 1,000 soldiers appeared, surrounding Shenlang's group as if they were capturing a great demon. The captain said grimly, "Lord Shen, please understand. White Knight Prefecture is currently afflicted by a smallpox epidemic. Anyone coming from there must be quarantined for 5 days and confirmed to be clean before being released." Shenlang smiled profoundly. "May I ask who issued this very human order?" The captain quickly replied in a respectful tone, "The order is from the Secretariat, the Bureau of Military Affairs, and the Central Military Commission. This humble general is merely carrying out orders." After speaking, he shouted, "Men, escort Lord Shen's group to the Jiadao quarantine camp. Absolutely do not allow them to leave the quarantine area. Anyone who violates this order will be executed on the spot without question." The people behind Shenlang were livid. "We risked our lives in White Knight, achieved great merit for the country, and we come back to be treated like criminals. This is outrageous. White Knight Prefecture is so far from the capital. If there was any illness, it would have shown itself long ago. Besides, they've all been vaccinated." Shenlang gave a faint smile and looked at the captain. "What is your esteemed name, brother, so that I may remember your face?" The other man puffed out his chest and replied grandly, "This general is Wang Dam, a guerrilla general of the Tainyu Commandery." It sounded impressive, but Tainyu was just a flowery name for the capital city, a place with more gossip than people. And the title of guerrilla general, while sounding grand, was just for show. Guarding the city gate usually only required a chiliarch. There was no need for a general like Wang Dam to be there for such a grand reception. Understanding that this was an organized power play, Shenlang remained calm. "My people have all been vaccinated. The risk of infection is 0. If necessary, I am willing to take them to the third princess's mansion to quarantine themselves. You can send people to supervise." He thought the negotiation would go smoothly, but Wang Dam immediately showed his hand. "Not allowed. This is a joint official document from 3 agencies. Please have a look." The document clearly stated, anyone returning to the capital from Tianxi province, regardless of class, age, species human, dog, cat, god, or demon must be quarantined. Anyone from White Knight Prefecture is forbidden from contact, forbidden from breathing near others, and should sit in their room eating their meals with tears and reflecting on their life. The smallpox epidemic must be eradicated at its source. Anyone who violates this will be arrested immediately. Anyone who resists will be killed without reason, for this is for the nation and its people. The document bore 4 great seals, second only to an imperial edict. It looked reasonable, but it was clearly aimed at him, Shenlang. Once he accepted the quarantine, it would be like tying his own hands. Being locked up for a few days in the quarantine camp, the prestige he had gained from his victory in the southern campaign, and the elimination of the Su and Gen families would be wiped clean. Everyone would see that even in the capital, he was just a small fry. It was indeed a vicious political move, like a dagger hidden in a sleeve, killing without spilling blood. Shenlang looked at the document, glanced at Wang Dong, and then asked leisurely, "General Wang Dong, what if I don't like being locked up?" Wang Dong gave a smile. That wasn't a smile. "Lord Shen, an order is an order. Please don't make things difficult for me." Shenlang shouted, "And what if it caused trouble?" Wang Dong dropped the act, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. He replied coldly, "Kill." He snorted, "I have made it very clear, and the document also states it clearly. Anyone from White Knight Prefecture who refuses to be quarantined and even shows resistance, in order to protect the safety of the million citizens of the capital, will be killed without mercy." Over 1,000 soldiers immediately roared in unison, their momentum shaking the heavens. The surrounding crowd panicked and scattered, but after a few steps, they turned back to gather and watch the show. Wang Dong announced in a loud voice, "Fellow citizens, this is Shenlang, the man whose name is called on every battlefield by the newspapers and the internet." Instantly thousands of eyes turned toward Shenlang, full of caution, coldness, and judgment. Because rumors had already spread that Shenlang had led the Jun army to massacre White Knight, killing tens of thousands, destroying over a dozen cities, and creating a hell of blood and fire. Although the king had exonerated him and recognized his merits, when public opinion goes wild, reason is just a whisper in the wind. Wang Dong, emboldened, said loudly, "Everyone knows that the smallpox epidemic in White Knight is raging fiercely. To protect the lives of the millions of citizens in the capital, the 3 agencies have issued this order. Please support us and do not blame us. All who come from White Knight must be quarantined and have their health checked." Wang Dong declared this as if he were issuing a divine decree. He turned to the crowd, his hand raised high, his voice full of tragic grandeur. "Esteemed folks, have I done anything wrong?" Immediately, 1,000 mouths, as if pre-programmed, roared in unison, "No, you haven't. Arrest them all. That's right. Don't let the germs spread." Into the capital, the shouts echoed like crashing waves. And then, with a great sense of community, the crowd automatically retreated several dozen steps from Shenlang's group. It was smallpox, after all. Who would dare to joke about it? If you caught it, your life was over. No matter how many merits you had, you wouldn't even have a chance to write a will. Behind him, Shen Shizhen watched the scene, fuming. He thought bitterly, the master saved countless smallpox patients in White Knight Prefecture and even stopped the epidemic from spreading. There are no cases in the capital right now, and that is almost entirely the master's achievement. And now they want to lock us up. Wang Dong stepped forward, his face a mask of solemn, hypocritical morality. "City Lord Shen, you have seen it for yourself. This is not only the court's order but also the will of the people. For the safety of the citizens of the capital, please accept the quarantine. Please hand over your weapons and lead your men to the quarantine camp." Shenlang looked at him as if he were a clown with terrible acting skills and let out a cold snort of contempt. "Afraid of getting infected? Then why do you dare to stand so close to me? You know full well my people have all been vaccinated and strictly checked. If quarantine is needed, I will take them to the 3rd princess's mansion myself. You can supervise as you please. Yet you still demand I hand over my weapons and want to lock me up in that shabby camp, no better than a den of insects. Do you think I'm a beggar? It's obvious you want to slap me in the face in front of everyone. It's obviously a trap." Seeing that Shenlang was unmoved, Wang Dong immediately rushed forward and knelt in the middle of the road, tears and snot streaming down his face in a masterclass of overacting. "City Lord Shen, I know you are a man of great merit, a hero. Although my rank is several levels higher than yours, today, for the sake of the common people, for the lives of the innocent, I must kneel before you. Please, do not make things difficult any longer." The scene was like a cheap tragedy film. The crowd was immediately moved to confusion. Heavens, this general is so dedicated. That's right, people like Wang Dong truly serve the people and the country. Shenlang is too arrogant, so what if he has merits? Does that mean he can treat human lives like grass? Faced with Wang Dong's shamelessness, Shenlang thought to himself, damn it, why is it that someone always claims the moral high ground? Seizing the opportunity, Wang Dong continued to wail until his voice was hoarse. "Lord Shen, please hand over your weapons. For the country, for the people, for everyone," Shenlang sneered, "and if I don't, General Wang Dong." The moment the words left his mouth, Wang Dong sprang to his feet and shouted, "Are you going to disregard the lives of millions of people? Do you see the people as grass?" He continued, "City Lord Shenlang, then please forgive me. For the safety of the myriad people of the capital, I can only obey military orders. I hope you will not blame me. All troops, prepare." Shenlang immediately slapped his hand down decisively, giving a signal to his comrades. Instantly, the 200 warriors behind him entered a combat stance. Wang Dong's voice cracked as he screamed, are you going to defy the court? Defy the secretariat. I'll count to 5. If you don't surrender your weapons, it will be considered armed resistance, and you will be killed without mercy. He began to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. General Shenlang, they gave you a chance. You are stubborn and foolish. Do not blame me for enforcing military law without mercy. All the citizens in the city can bear witness. I act for the safety of the capital, for the lives of the people. Immediately 2,000 elites from the capital commandery raised their battle sabers in unison, and advanced step by step. Amidst the earth shaking footsteps, Wang Dong revealed a ferocious, triumphant grin. You only have 200 men, I have 1,000. This is the capital, not White Knight. Even if you are a dragon, you will have to lie down and be bound here. Shenlang gave Wang Dong a cold glance, his eyes so calm they were chilling. He uttered, idiot, then he turned and gave a concise order, Dasha, close your eyes. Kill. Dasha said nothing, just lightly closed his eyes. Then, in an instant, he swung his mountain-heavy iron staff, bringing it straight down like a strike from the heavens. Wang Dong screamed in horror, Shenlang, you dare. This is rebel. Before he could finish, the blade he drew to defend himself shattered like a porcelain bowl dropped from the 3rd floor. The iron staff came down like a thunderbolt, smashing directly onto his head. A single blow crushed his skull, sending blood and flesh flying. His body was pulverized like rotten wood. Wang Dong died a miserable death, not even a whole corpse left behind. And so, another young man with bad luck who messed with our protagonist departed in agony. Continuing from the previous chapter, Wang Dong had barely managed to mouth off for a few sentences before he was sent to meet his ancestors. It was a death that came too quickly, too suddenly, under Dasha's blade. Blood splattered everywhere. There was nothing left to cry or grieve over. Seeing this, the soldiers' faces turned paler than a frog's behind, and they fell into utter chaos. Holy crap, the general's really dead. What do we do? No, we can't let this vicious dog into the city. Brothers, charge. But before they could even charge, Shenlang's voice rang out, his expression ice cold. I am in charge of military affairs here. Anyone else who dares to block my path into the city will be killed. As soon as Dasha heard this, his eyes remained shut tight, as if he didn't want to witness the tragedy he was about to create. He swung his iron staff like a fan, beginning a massacre, cutting down the soldiers guarding the Xuanwu gate like cabbages in a storm. Bodies flew everywhere. As for Shenlang's 200 warriors, they raised their crossbows and rained down bolts like a July storm. The 1,000 soldiers on the other side didn't even have time to breathe. One moment they were shouting quarantine, the next they were lying 3 inches from the ground. It was a kind of quarantine, but a very strange one. Looking at Wang Dong's cold corpse on the ground, Shenlang spat out a short eulogy. The one who sent you only hoped you would get angry and kill him. His wish has now come true. Congratulations. In an instant, the soldiers who had been so aggressive just moments ago were all tragically killed. Bodies lay scattered on the ground, the thick stench of blood rising in the air. Without hesitation, Shenlang, looking every bit the boss, shouted loudly, "Go!" The 200 warriors immediately spurred their horses as if possessed, charging into the city like arrows tearing through the wind. Behind them, they left only a battlefield littered with corpses and a crowd so terrified they couldn't even scream. It wasn't until Shenlang was out of sight that the gossiping mouth started working again. Shenlang has rebelled. He's really rebelled. Shenlang just curled his lip, his voice full of content. Is that all? In White Knight Prefecture, I killed tens of thousands. You think I'd get soft-hearted coming to the capital? After entering the city, Shenlang went straight along Xuanwu Avenue to the mansion of the 5th prince, Ningzheng. Strangely, despite the pile of corpses, no one pursued them. It was clear the enemy was putting on a show, wanting to stage a scene where Shenlang publicly killed people and then pin the hat of rebellion on his head to make it grand. The so-called Xuanwu Gate incident was just an appetizer, the show wasn't over yet. A short while later, the entire group arrived at the 5th Prince Ningzheng's mansion. Ningzheng's wife and the old eunuch ran out to greet them like a disturbed beehive, their eyes filled with tears, their mouths stammering. "Lord Shen, you finally arrived. Thank heavens you're really here." Shenlang asked grimly, "What happened?" The old eunuch trembled uncontrollably, his teeth chattering. His Highness the 5th Prince has been taken away by the court of the Imperial clan. Note, the court of the Imperial clan is an agency specializing in managing affairs within the royal family, sometimes also handling cases involving the nobility. Shenlang was shocked. The court of the Imperial clan. For what? A friendly chat. Seeing that the protagonist didn't seem to understand, the old eunuch shook his head and explained, it wasn't for tea and cakes. He's been thrown straight into the main prison. Hearing this, Shenlang's eyebrows twitched as if someone were pulling a nerve. Previously, Princess Ningyan had also been confined in a compound belonging to the court of the Imperial clan, but that was just a theatrical performance. She was out after a few days, nothing serious. But once an official was thrown into the prison of the court of the Imperial clan, it meant trouble, level max. Princess Ningyan's confinement was only for 2 months before she returned to her life of drinking tea. But for an official to be thrown into the prison, they could very well be eating the state's food for several years, counting the days like a common criminal. The only difference was that one was in the court of judicial review, the other in the court of the imperial clan. Same type of confinement, different location. To put it bluntly, being thrown into the prison of the court of the imperial clan wasn't just confinement, it was the evaporation of one's future. It was difficult to turn things around. Once you were in there, your life was considered over. Then why was he arrested? Shenlang asked. The eunuch replied nonchalantly, murder. The moment these 2 words were spoken, Shenlang froze like a stone statue. Are you kidding me? It's true he lives a secluded life, but has anyone ever seen him lose his temper or say a harsh word? He's steady, humble, and dry as a bone, and now you're telling me he did something so shocking. Who did he kill? Shenlang asked again, still in shock. The old eunuch gritted his teeth and replied, the junior minister of the Court of Judicial Review, the assistant minister of the Court of Judicial Review, the chief registrar of the Court of Judicial Review, and 2 warriors. Shenlang was so stunned he went numb. What the hell, it's that serious? He went big enough to flip the entire Court of Judicial Review. A junior minister, a 4th rank high official, a rank no less than the pillars of the court, was dead. He was accompanied by an assistant minister and a chief registrar, 6th and 7th rank officials, who fell like autumn leaves. Not to mention 2 warriors. This wasn't a brawl, it was a massacre. This was a disaster on the level of shaking the court. No wonder Jenda was dragged straight into the prison of the court of the imperial clan without any further discussion. With such a charge, even the most favored prince might not be able to withstand it, let alone Jenda, who even a county magistrate dared to look down on. The opponent's move was ruthless, precise, and clearly smelled of a deep conspiracy. Not simple, very, very not simple. Just then, Binger suddenly rushed out and threw herself into Shenlang's arms. The young girl was nearly 6 months pregnant, her belly clearly showing. But now, her face was so haggard she was almost unrecognizable, so haggard it made one's heart itch for her. Her whole body trembled like a frightened little animal seeking shelter. I killed them. I killed the people. His Highness the 5th Prince is taking the blame for me. Binger started trembling. Shenlang stared blankly at her bloodshot eyes, dark circles from many sleepless nights. Looking at the belly carrying his child, his heart itched as if it were being cut. Shenlang quickly held her tight and gently comforted her. Don't be afraid, I am here. Tell me slowly, how exactly did you kill them? After she calmed down, she recounted the whole story to Shenlang. It was still because of the 2 daughters of Yu Fang from the Tianfan bookstore. According to the laws of the great Yu Fang's entire family was to be executed, and those 2 little girls were also to be taken to the Great Grace Pavilion. 3 days ago, the new junior minister of the Court of Judicial Review led a group of people and stormed into the 5th prince's mansion. While Jenda was away, they tried to forcibly take the 2 little girls. Lil Bing sobbed and said, of course, I didn't agree, so I and Miss Chua rushed up to stop them. Unexpectedly, a warrior from the Court of Judicial Review wanted to harm our child, so I activated the violent pear blossom needles. After that, the 5th prince, Jenda, in order to protect her, accepted the crime of murder and was immediately taken away by the people from the Court of Judicial Review and the Court of the Imperial Clan, swallowed by the prison of the Court of the Imperial Clan. The 2 little girls were also forcibly taken away and escorted straight to the Great Grace Pavilion, a place of confinement as cruel as hell on earth. After hearing this, Shenlang was furious. Damn it, the opponent's move isn't just ruthless anymore, it's hitting the final blow, smashing the limits of morality to the ground. He didn't even need to guess who the mastermind was. It was that woman with a cold face and a heart more venomous than a 9-headed snake, one of the crown prince's faction, Xiu Zhaoyan. Just you wait. Meanwhile, Binger couldn't stop crying, tormenting herself. My lord, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I'm the one who caused this great disaster. If it weren't for me killing people, the 5th prince wouldn't have been thrown into prison. Shenlang gently held her, his voice as sweet as sugar cane. Binger, you are not wrong. They dared to harm my flesh and blood. Even if it were the heavens, I would pull them down and kill them. Today's event is just a pretext. Without those 2 little girls, they would have found another reason. But since they dared to play tricks, they should be prepared to face the consequences. Anyone who dares to touch my child will be killed without mercy, Shenlang said to himself. The crown prince's side is clearly putting on a show, aiming the sword at one place but intending to strike another. The main target is me, Shenlang. Suddenly, someone rushed in a panic and reported, Report, Master, troops are coming. About 2,000 soldiers. The words had just left his mouth when the sound of thunderous footsteps echoed from outside, the clashing of weapons ringing like a winter fire and ice symphony. The sound of horse hooves pounding on the stone ground. In the blink of an eye, 2,000 soldiers had surrounded the 5th prince's mansion like flies on a pile of honey. A military officer stepped out, his mouth booming like a broken loudspeaker. Where is Shenlang? Before he could call out a second time, Shenlang had already stepped out leisurely, his demeanor arrogant and superior, as if he were the father of the world and mother of all creation. What was there to be afraid of? I'm watching to see what you guys are going to do. The officer glanced at Shenlang from head to toe and shouted, You are Shenlang. The protagonist didn't answer but curled his lip and asked back, And who are you? In a classic cold boy style. He replied clearly, I am the adjutant general of the Tainu Commandery, Xu Siming. So, what's the matter? Shenlang said. Xu Siming replied, You have brazenly defied the orders of the Secretariat, the Bureau of Military Affairs and the Central Military Commission at the Xuanwu Gate, and even killed our guerrilla general. This is the crime of rebellion. Please come with us to the Commandery office to cooperate with the investigation. Hearing this, Shenlang sneered, thinking, How interesting. When I broke through the Xuanwu Gate, why didn't you chase me? You only show up now to let me know that the fifth prince is in trouble. Damn it, you want to warn me that in this capital, I'm nothing. You want to push me to my death. Dream on, sweethearts. After thinking, Shenlang couldn't be bothered. He turned and walked back into the mansion, saying nonchalantly, Dasha, stand guard at the gate. Anyone who dares to charge in, smash their heads for me. Dasha nodded emotionlessly, carried his iron staff out, and stood imposingly in the middle of the gate, his face as blank as a wax figure, but his presence as mighty as a cannon. Not only that, Dasha slammed his staff into the air as a warning. Go on, come at me if you've got the guts. Xu Siming fumed and roared, surround the entire mansion. Do not let the traitor Shenlang escape. Await orders. From above, immediately 2,000 troops tightened the encirclement, so tight that not even a drop of water could get out, let alone a person. From a distance, Zhuo Zhuoyan stood with her legs crossed, smiling mockingly. Shenlang, you think you're a big shot just because you defeated Su Nan. You dare to touch the crown prince and even insult me. See now. You are so small, so weak, and so pitiful that even your rebellion is nay. In a carriage not far from Ning Zheng's mansion, Xu Pan lifted the curtain and also glared at Shenlang as if looking at an ungrateful child. That milk-faced brat is really bold. The Xu family offered goodwill to his door, and not only was he ungrateful, he even dared to be arrogant and refuse, and even opened his mouth to talk about revenge. Revenge, my ass, such nonsense. Now the crown prince just asked a woman to make a small move, and you almost died without even time to gasp, yet you still dare to be arrogant. Shenlang, oh Shenlang, you're just a small fry, yet you dare to offend both the crown prince and the third prince. If you want to seek death, don't be so eager. I really want to see how you're going to crawl through this ordeal. Just lie there and wait. Your end is near, my boy. The atmosphere in the fifth prince's mansion fell into a state of divine-level chaos. The soldiers hadn't even entered, but the people inside were already running around in a panic. The old eunuch's face was whiter than paper. He ran back and forth, restless. We haven't even rescued the fifth prince yet, and now Lord Shen has caused more trouble. It's truly one disaster after another. What do we do now? How can we make things right? Shenlang, however, sat there shaking his leg and drinking tea, his face calm. Eunuchen, don't worry. It looks like a big deal, but those tattered soldiers are just here to show off their strength. They won't dare to really make a move. Because Shenlang knew very well that this drama was just the prelude. The one who would press the final button was still the king. And to play to the end, it wasn't enough to just rescue Ningzheng. He had to turn him from a carp into a dragon. Fighting the crown prince and the third prince was not like dealing with his previous enemies. It couldn't be solved simply by killing them. To eliminate the crown prince and the third prince, he first had to establish the fifth prince. How could he alone be strong enough to fight against both of them? The plan was already in place. Step 1. Normalize Ningzheng's status. It was pitiful for a prince to have no title. Step 2. Open a mansion and establish his own power base. Give him soldiers, an army, money, and power. Step 3. Lead that force to achieve merits, to perform miracles that would make the world look up to him and make the king rub his eyes and reevaluate him. The final step, kick the crown prince and the third prince off the chessboard and push Ningzheng to become the legitimate heir. If successful, Shenlang could leisurely wash his hands of it all, retire to his Xuanwu mansion, and become a gentleman of leisure. And if he ever got the whim, he could build the best warship in the world and sail half the globe with his darling Milan. He would watch the sea by day and flip the bed by night. Who would dare to stop him? He could have children, grandchildren, even a whole legion of them. Ah, wouldn't that be wonderful? Shenlang didn't waste time messing around. He casually sent one dumb on his way for the crime of blocking his entry into the city. After it was done, he delivered a chilling verdict. Anyone else who blocks me, kill them all. No explanation needed. He had killed so many, yet the path behind him was as deserted as an empty temple, making Shenlang smell a conspiracy. After arriving at the fifth prince's mansion, he heard the shocking news. His Highness had been arrested and thrown into the prison of the court of the imperial clan for murder. But the truth was, Little Binger had killed those people. The fifth prince had only stepped up to take the blame for her when he saw she was pregnant with Shenlang's child. The storm hadn't passed. Zhu Siming arrived with 2,000 soldiers to arrest Shenlang for rebellion. But Shenlang wasn't scared. He had dashed a stand guard at the gate with a simple order: if anyone dared to step inside, smash their damn head in. As for Ning Yuanxian, the king was still stretching his neck waiting for the envoy from the Chu kingdom, but days passed and not a soul showed up. Unable to invite the king of Wu back to the Yu capital, Ning Yuanxian had to stay at the northern palace, playing games and plotting, intending to use the king of Wu as leverage to force the Chu envoy to show his face. For the past few days, Ning Yuanxian had held a banquet every day, being incredibly enthusiastic with the king of Wu. The two big shots not only ate and drank to their heart's content but also idly recited poetry, played chess, and shot the breeze, transforming from men who once looked at each other with half an eye into progressive friends, occasionally as close as brothers. The final chess game had just ended. Ning Yuanxian clasped his hands and smiled politely. I've won against my son-in-law again. For the king of Wu to be so young and already so skilled at chess is truly rare. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed a game so much. The king of Wu played his part perfectly, switching to max level modesty. No, royal brother's chess skills are too high. I racked my brain and still couldn't keep up. Let's just play one game tomorrow, or my brain will explode. The king laughed heartily. Now that I've won more than I've lost, it must be because I haven't fully grasped the king of Wu's style of play. A true worthy opponent indeed. The last time I played chess with Shenlang, it made me sleepy. His chess skills are terrible. In this lifetime, I will not play a second game of chess with him. It's too embarrassing. The king of Wu smiled and said, the talents under royal brother's command truly make this younger brother admire you immensely. He said it politely, but in his head, he was muttering, admire my foot. For the past few days, Ning Yuanxian has mentioned Shenlang I don't know how many times, praising him more than his own son. The king continued to ramble on. My Yu kingdom does indeed have some talented people. But Shenlang is nothing special. This brat has some talent, but he's too pretentious, not worth mentioning. Not worth mentioning. The king of Wu sat there listening, feeling like he was suffocating. He screamed internally, you say he's not worth mentioning, but you chew on it every day. You might as well print his face on your pillow. Just then, Eunuchlu rushed in and whispered in the king's ear, Your Majesty, a secret report. As soon as he opened it, and read it, the king was so shocked his eyes nearly popped out. What the fuck? Ningzhen killed 5 officials of the Court of Judicial Review. Shenlang returned to the capital, publicly beheaded Guerrilla General Wan Dong, and charged into Xuanwu Gate. Seeing the king's face turn as black as the bottom of a pot, the king of Wu immediately stood up, feigning a cold. This younger brother's constitution is a bit weak, so I must go rest. Royal brother should also rest early. The king forced a smile. The king of Wu must also take good care of his body. But after the king of Wu left, the king could no longer contain his anger. He slammed his hand on the table in frustration and growled, Did the capital commandery capture Shenlang or not? Eunuchlu replied, No, but they sent 2,000 warriors and have Shenlang surrounded in the 5th prince's mansion. The more the king heard, the angrier he became. I'm not dead yet, and they're already in chaos. Do they think I'm old and senile? Do they really see me as a fatuous ruler? Tomorrow, hold a farewell ceremony for the king of Wu. The day after tomorrow, I will immediately return to the capital. I want to see what these people want to do. Are they seeking death? The next day, King Ning Yuanxian grandly held a farewell ceremony for the king of Wu, his mouth smiling like a flower but his stomach exploding like a bomb. After the ceremony, he mounted his horse and led his grand army back towards the capital, his presence overwhelming, his anger boiling his crown. At the same time, inside the crown prince's mansion, ever since the Su clan was exterminated, Consort Su had closed her palace doors and refused to see even Ningjing. So, Ningjing could only go to the crown prince's mansion every day to fawn over him. Qiu Zhaoyan was no different, serving tea day and night, her words sweet. She said softly, His Majesty has returned. He should be back in the capital in 4 days. Ningjing quickly chimed in, Shenlang is truly faking crazy. To publicly kill a court general at Xuanwu Gate and openly attack the city guard, what is that if not rebellion? It wasn't easy for him to achieve a great merit, and now he's thrown it all away. He's just a small son-in-law. Don't think that just because you slept with Ning Yan once, you're a son-in-law of our Ning family. What a power trip. I despise him. He secretly calculated, as long as I can cling to the crown prince's thigh, I'm not completely done for. The crown prince remained silent, his expression as cold as ice. Xiu Zhaoyan added, Your Highness, rest assured. His Majesty is clear about love and hate. Although Shenlang has merits, killing someone in front of the capital, and moreover, killing a guerrilla general of the court and breaking through the gate, this is absolute rebellion. It's completely a slap in His Majesty's face. It will make others think of Sunan. Ning Jing, getting his cue, slammed his hand on the table and said excitedly, right, my father values his face the most. Anyone who dares to make him lose face, even if they have great merits, is dead for sure. This time, Shenlang is definitely dead, but the crown prince still didn't say a word. Ning Jing glanced at Jiu Zhaoyan and continued to flatter, Miss Jiu is truly brilliant. In a moment, you can eliminate both Shenlang and Ning Zhang. One arrow, two birds. Just then, the crown prince's face darkened and he said coldly, twice. Hearing this, Jiu Zhaoyan trembled, her soul flying to the clouds. Her legs went soft as boiled noodles, and she immediately prostrated herself. The crown prince's words were always incomprehensible to others, like a passing breeze, one sentence unrelated to the next. Outsiders would be completely bewildered, not knowing where to begin. Only those who truly understood him knew what he was talking about. And what was even more frightening was that he deliberately made it so others wouldn't understand. But Jiu Zhaoyan understood clearly. Sweat beaded on her face, and her heart pounded in panic. The crown prince is talking about Ku Tihuan. The first time, he was sent to kill Xu Kaiqian, but he didn't act. And this time, he was sent to assassinate Jin Zhuo, and he still didn't act. This led to the Wu Kingdom's misjudgment, completely losing the Battle of Raging Tide City, with disastrous consequences and staggering losses for the hidden Yuan society. She trembled and pleaded, Your Highness, he is useful after all. I hope Your Highness will give him a few more chances. There are people in the world with higher martial arts skills than him, but they are all very difficult to command. Talent is rare. The crown prince said, Let him out, then capture him again. Punish him to the highest degree. Hearing this, Jiu Zhaoyan quickly begged, Your Highness, please give him one more chance. He has served you for so many years. If there is no merit, there is at least hard work. The crown prince said no more. When he spoke, it was final. There was absolutely no going back, and certainly no apology. Hu Tuan was indeed skilled in martial arts and sometimes useful, but he had a penchant for being a good person, for distinguishing between good and evil, right and wrong. Seeing Jiu Zhaoyan about to open her mouth to plead again, the crown prince's gaze shot towards her, as sharp as a butcher's knife. Just one glance made her skin crawl, and she kowtowed like she was chopping wood. Understood. This servant will have him meet you, then immediately have him arrested. Scene changed to inside the court of the imperial clan. Jin Muchen had been kneeling in the courtyard for several days, and no one bothered to see him. Everyone knew that the one with the right to speak for the Jin family in the capital was Shenlang. Jin Muchen was born to be a background character. Every time he opened his mouth to speak, the whole room would fall silent, but silent as in ignoring him, not listening. Whatever he said was like a passing breeze. No one paid any attention, as if he didn't exist. The Grand Minister of the court, Ning Yu, stood inside the house, seeing everything clearly but still not showing his face. He thought to himself, this stubborn personality is actually very similar to Jin Zhu's. Walking inside, he stood before Princess Ningji and said, Your Highness, are you here to speak for Jin Muchen? Ningji glanced lightly, her voice nonchalant and harsh. What does Shenlang's business have to do with me? Scene changed to inside the Prime Minister's mansion. The governor of Tannan Province, Xu Rong, entered, clasped his hands, and said, Father, His Majesty is only a little over 100 miles from the capital, faster than expected. It seems he set off in a hurry, which shows he is very angry. On the crown prince's side. At this time, the prime minister of the Secretariat, Chu Hongxiu, was leisurely practicing calligraphy. Hearing this, he replied nonchalantly, Ignore him. Xu Rong continued, All those from White Knight Prefecture entering the capital must be quarantined. This decree, after all, was sent from the Secretariat. Chu Hongxiu replied, It was not sent by me. This prime minister was truly a man with a mortal body but a transcendent, otherworldly aura. There were 4 prime ministers in the Secretariat, but he, Xu Hongxiu, was always ranked first, the jade pillar supporting the heavens for the civil officials, a name that, just mentioning was enough to make people in the court break out in a cold sweat. But in his eyes, the Secretariat was the Secretariat, business was business, and it had nothing to do with him. Don't drag me into that mess. Xu Rong, seeing his indifferent reaction, continued, But when the decree from the Secretariat was issued, everyone instinctively felt it was related to you. Xu Hongxiu said, It's fine. As long as His Majesty knows it's not related to me, that's enough. There are many things one doesn't need to get involved in. Our Jiu family supports the crown prince, but at this moment, there is basically no need for us to show our faces. Xu Rong was surprised. Then the Shenlang. He raised his hand to stroke his long beard leisurely and said, We have disagreements that are difficult to reconcile. At this moment, the entire capital was holding its breath, waiting for the king to arrive. The entire Yu kingdom had won a complete victory. King Ning Yuengshan's prestige had reached its peak, but unexpectedly, someone was still causing trouble. The gossip was flying. Have you heard? The 5th prince killed 5 court officials. Another person chimed in, Teft, that's nothing. I saw with my own eyes Shenlang at the Xuanwu Gate beheading a guerrilla general of the court. That's rebellion. Shenlang's action is a slap in the king's face. His Majesty will absolutely not forgive him. Everyone was certain that King Ning Yuanxian was furious at this moment, waiting for Shenlang to face misfortune, for Ning Zhen to face misfortune, waiting for everyone's heads to roll. The king arrived faster than anyone had imagined, appearing north of the capital a day earlier. The crown prince led the court officials in a grand ceremony to welcome the triumphant king. To celebrate this great victory, the king didn't even go directly to the royal palace but went to the newly built sacred temple to pay respects to the saints. Then he went to the ancestral altar to comfort the ancestors. Finally, when he entered the royal palace, night had already fallen. Inside the royal palace, the Tainyu commander, Zheng Zhao, entered to report. Reporting to your majesty. 5 days ago, Shenlang led his troops back to the capital. According to the decrees of the Secretariat and the Bureau of Military Affairs, anyone returning from White Knight Prefecture must first undergo quarantine. Only after their bodies are checked and found to be fine can the quarantine be lifted. But Shenlang, relying on his great merits, trampled on the decrees of the Secretariat, publicly beheaded Wang Dong, the guerrilla general of the commandery, and killed 83 city guards. Such behavior is chilling to even hear about, let alone the fact that those people came from White Knight Prefecture where an epidemic just broke out. I am worried they carry germs, especially smallpox. Therefore, I have ordered the deployment of 2,000 troops to completely seal off Shenlang's residence. No one, whether coming in or going out, is allowed. Now how should we deal with Shenlang next? Please, your majesty, decide. The Tainyu commander, Zhang Zhao, was considered one of the king's men, but his allegiance leaned towards the crown prince. This was also permitted by the king. After all, the third prince Ning Kai's forces controlled all the military power around Tainyu city, so it was only natural to hand over the city guard to the crown prince. After hearing Commander Zhang Zhao's report, the king immediately flew into a rage, slamming the table and shouting, Shenlang is so audacious he doesn't even see me. What does he think Xuanwu Gate is? The main gate of his house. Does he think that just because he achieved a few merits in Tangxi province, he can do whatever he wants? Will Jun, take people to the Ning mansion and arrest Shenlang for me. Will Jun immediately clasped his hands and accepted the order. Understood. Half an hour later, inside the garden of the royal palace, Shenlang walked in. His gait was leisurely, but his etiquette was impeccable. He bowed and paid his respects. Greetings, your majesty. The king stared at him for a long time, his eyes full of suspicion, as if wanting to inspect every strand of his hair, hoping to find some haggardness, some misery after 2 months of wandering the pugilistic world. But no, quite the opposite. Shenlang looked healthy, his spirit bright, and he even had a bit of an air of someone who had been eating and sleeping well. The king immediately felt a squeeze in his heart and thought silently, damn it, for the past 2 months, my hair has turned white, and I look as haggard as a 70-year-old man, while he is as fresh as a young girl in her 20s without a single change. This is infuriating. Following Ning Yuanxian's command, Shenlang dragged his ass to see the king after many days of longing. At first, the king intended to unleash a storm, to roar and shake the earth, to spew pearls and jade like rolling thunder and swirling clouds. But after roaring for a while, he got tired. Acting for too long is exhausting. So, he just let out a breath that sounded like a winter wind, then pinched his forehead and sighed. You really are a heaven-sent scourge. You knew someone was setting a trap, but you couldn't just walk lightly, speak softly, and smile charmingly. Instead, you had to tear down the entire city gate and casually gift the court with a dead general. You were just trying to slap me in the face for fun, weren't you? Before Shenlang could even open his mouth to explain, the king waved his hand, cutting him off like dusting off dirt. Stop, don't say it. When your mouth opens, it's a philosophy essay of 1,000 words. After hearing it, one just wants to bang their head against a wall and live on bricks. I'll be blunt. You've never known how to write the 2 words dignify, but this time you have some merits, so I'll let you off for now. He had eliminated Sunan, dealt with Zhengqiu, and even stopped the smallpox epidemic in White Knight. For now, that counted as a merit as big as a mountain. Alright, just say what you want. Hearing that, Shenlang grinned as if he'd won the lottery, scratching his head and asking back, can I really have whatever I want? The king's eyes widened, and he shot up from his seat. Stop, just shut your damn mouth and let me finish. Pacing back and forth, the king said, Yu Mengzi's has arrived in Yan capital and is discussing the cancellation of Ning Yan's engagement. But I find it too troublesome, so I've already set the wedding date. You will marry Ning Yan. It's settled. Shenlang froze like a stone statue, his face as if doused with ice water, his eyes like a goldfish about to run out of oxygen. His heart screamed, what? On one side was Ning Yan, whom he couldn't bear to hurt. On the other was Jin Milan, his beloved, legitimate wife. How was he supposed to choose? Seeing him still frozen, the king dropped another bombshell. I've taken care of the Jin Jiu matter. Tomorrow, there will be a sacred edict severing the ties. You will no longer be the Jin family son-in-law, free as a bird from its cage. As for Mulan, if you want to secretly see her, I'll turn a blind eye. But the official documents will only list Yan as your wife, you hear me? Jun stood there listening, speechless, thinking to himself, His Majesty is truly benevolent to you, not only giving you his daughter but also turning a blind eye to your ambiguous, hanky-panky relationship with Jin Mulan. But Shenlang, with his shameless face, pushed his luck. Your Majesty, I sincerely want to be the Jin family's son-in-law. But if possible, could I be the son-in-law of both families? One side is the Jin family, the other is the imperial family. In the name of peace, and under the banner of doubling happiness. The entire hall was petrified for 3 seconds. The king's brain flew out of his skull and spun around 3 times before returning. His mouth hung open. What is in your head that you could come up with such a shameless idea? Does such a shameless person actually exist in this world? Jun was as if possessed, his mouth agape like a gasping fish, thinking silently, what book teaches how to handle this kind of situation? Damn, this dog is really crazy. Instantly, the king trembled with rage, pointing a finger straight at Shenlang's face and roaring, drag him out. I don't want to see that greasy face anymore. And so, Shenlang was grabbed by the shoulders by 2 guards and dragged out of the hall like a sack of rice. But not even a moment later, the king changed his tune again. Drag him back in for me, thud. Shenlang was thrown back and forth, humiliated like a dog, and ended up sprawling on the floor. Meanwhile, the king was still boiling with rage, his face red, his ears crimson, shouting, You ungrateful dog, do you know what you just lost? You have missed the opportunity to become my son-in-law, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that will never come again. But Shenlang still wore that same shameless, mocking smile. He slowly stood up, dusted off his clothes, his expression as calm as if nothing had happened. My big brother Huan told me, when you're out in society making a living, if you take big risks, you get big rewards. If you take small risks, you get small rewards. To succeed, you must experience bitterness and sweetness. In business, you have to accept risks. I, Shenlang, have more guts than blood. I just asked to be the son-in-law of 2 families. Why is the king so tense? He said I could ask for anything. What a load of bull. After a while, the king sat down and sighed, his voice as light as a winter wind. Lord Shen, you have achieved great merits. I cannot not reward you. Speak, what do you want? Hearing this, Shenlang's eyes lit up. He said, Your Majesty, can I be honest? The king roared, If you need to say it, say it. If not, then don't. I just want a tiny little bit of power. Just make the 5th prince, Ningjang, a dupe. The entire hall almost flipped over. The shamelessness was unparalleled. The king's face changed colors faster than a traffic light red, purple, green, white. At this moment, he was no longer a king. He was a category 12 typhoon smashing straight into their faces. You are very good, Shenlang. A moment ago, you asked to be the son-in-law of 2 families, and now you're asking for a special promotion for that neighborhood troublemaker. You should have been sent to recuperate in prison long ago. Jun, listening from the outside, trembled, thinking to himself, His Majesty does indeed favor you, but you must also know how to hold your tongue. No one is allowed to interfere in His Majesty's private affairs, let alone what you're saying, which is no different from accusing the king of treating his children unfairly. Moreover, you want to transfer your merits to Ningjang. Isn't that looking down on the king's grace? The king's voice suddenly dropped. Are you using your merits to bargain for power with me? Criticizing me for mistreating my own son? Or are you criticizing me for not knowing how to raise my children? At this point, Shenlang also stopped joking. He straightened his expression and said seriously, I owe the 5th prince a great debt. That year at the Marquis of Xuanwu's mansion, when I was in dire straits and about to die, no one dared to utter a peep. Only the 5th prince was like a flashlight in a blackout night, daring to step forward and help with all his heart. This time, it was clearly my concubine who accidentally sent a court official on his way to meet his ancestors. Yet the 5th prince not only didn't run away, but he even stepped up and took all the blame for the murder. Shenlang slapped his chest, his eyes shimmering like fermented shrimp paste. I ask you, Your Majesty, if I don't repay such a debt of gratitude, can I still be considered a human being? Hearing this, Ning Yuanxian was so angry he was fuming. He shouted, If you want to repay a debt, use your own things to repay it. Don't take my family's things to freeload. You achieve the merits, you enjoy the rewards. Don't drag Ningjang's name into your requests. After hearing this, Shenlang nodded and smiled lightly. Then I understand. Shenlang said softly, In that case, I don't want to receive anything anymore. This statement was no different from throwing the king's goodwill straight over his shoulder. King Ning Yuanxian was bestowing grace like a celestial being descended to earth, but after hearing this sentence, he was so angry his face turned black, aging him by a decade. It's fine if you can't think of anything. Leave it to me. I don't have the habit of being as fickle as water used to wash snails. If there are merits, there must be rewards. And besides, I'm free right now. I'll bestow some blessings as a form of entertainment. But life is not like a dream. Shenlang began to switch to holy hedging mode, his face as solemn as if he were about to confess he was a descendant of the great sage, equal to heaven. Your Majesty, what I am about to say may make you so angry you'll want to chop my head in half and dry it in the sun for 3 days and 3 nights. The king jumped. Experience told him that when Shenlang said something was dangerous beforehand, it usually turned out to be truly dangerous afterward. He immediately shouted for tea. Jun, with ninja-like reflexes, immediately brought a cup of calming tea to the hall. He trembled and thought, tea, to cool down, to cool down. Your Majesty, calm your fire. The king took a gulp, exhaled like a meditating monk, then waved his hand for everyone to leave the hall. His voice was calm but filled with killing intent. If you want to die, I'm not free to stop you. But remember, if I smash your head into the ancestral altar out of anger in a bit, you'll have to bear it yourself. Don't play the victim and cry foul. Speak. Shenlang, far from being scared, even adjusted his clothes neatly and clasped his hands seriously. Your Majesty says I have achieved great merits, but I feel I have no merits at all. Because I didn't do it for the country, I did it out of hatred. In the past, I swore to destroy the entire Su clan. Now I've done it. Every time I open my mouth, it's all deceitful words and dirty schemes. But when it comes to my father-in-law, Jin Juo, I haven't bent a single word. That is the truth, truer than bottled spring water. The king narrowed his eyes. It sounded touching, but after hearing it, he wanted to slap him. Are you indirectly talking about me? You think I care? Are you saying I'm on the same level as Jin Juo? Before he could digest it, Shenlang continued, at first, I just wanted to live a peaceful life in Shuamu, eating well and dressing well. I never thought about coming to the capital. But life is not a dream. To get my father-in-law the title of Marquis of Shuamu, to help the Jin family set foot in Raging Tide City, I had to come. For revenge, I also had to come. Sunan was my enemy. Now he's dead. The next target I want to erase is the Shu family. At this point, the king was completely frozen. Green veins popped out on his face, and he gritted his teeth in anger. He roared in his heart, damn it, you dare to say that for real? Do you know that the Shu family is my absolute confidant? From secret assets and domestic intelligence to the international spy network, who do you think is in charge? It's the Shu family, my boy. Do you know how powerful the Shu family is? The Su family's strength was on the surface, but the Shu family's terrifying power is completely hidden. Beneath the water. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg. The Shu family is so powerful it's far beyond anything you, Shenlang, can imagine. Shenlang, however, was as calm as if the air were very chill, and he added another critical hit. Your Majesty loves me very much. Looking at you, I can tell you'll probably live for another 20 years without any problem. Did this protagonist grow a tiger's guts today? Such bold words. The king heard this, and almost had a heart attack. His eyes were bloodshot with anger, and he screamed in his heart, you little Nihin evil creature, do you believe I'll strangle you right now? I'm only just 50, still young and vibrant, and you open your mouth to wish me another 20 years to live. What's that supposed to mean? What's the implication? Are you cursing me? Ning Yuangxian, I'm a great emperor who knows how to maintain my health. If I don't live to be 100, is it impossible for me to live to be 80 or 90? Fine, I'll endure it. I'll endure it. I won't lower myself to argue with a brat like you. But Shenlang knew no fear and continued, after all, Your Majesty is 30 years older than me. If Your Majesty has an accident and returns to dust, and the crown prince puts on the yellow hat and takes the throne, will I be able to live in peace? If the third prince takes the throne, I bet the Jin family will be shackled before they even finish washing the dishes. I can pack up and leave on my own. But what about the Jin family? Does Your Majesty want my wife's family to hide weapons and daggers, waiting until they are pushed to the brink to bite back? The play of the ruler forcing his subject to rebel is too dramatic. I'll say it now, I'm lazy. My father-in-law is twice as lazy. While Shenlang was still rambling on, Lejun trembled, chanting sutras and praying in his heart, Namo Amitabha. I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything at all. The king was speechless after hearing this. He wanted to rebut, but he was at a loss for words because he himself had discarded several of his father's edicts after succeeding the throne. If he himself had rebelled, what could he say about his own son? Then, suddenly Shenlang changed his tone, his face serious. If I and the Jin family don't want to end up in the cemetery sunbathing our bones soon, then there is only one way, put the fifth prince, Ningzhen, on the crown prince's seat. The moment the words were spoken, the cup in the king's hand shattered along with the anger in his heart. It was as if a cannon had exploded in the king's head. Ning Yuangxian's eyes widened so much they almost popped out, and he nearly vomited blood on the spot. Goosebumps ran from his spine down to his heels. He clenched his fists and growled in his heart, "Damn it, you. You dared to say that." He had just heard the most absurd sentence in human history. Ning Zhen is crown prince, and then succeeding the throne. Aha, is there anything funnier than this in the world? No, absolutely not. This was the pinnacle of absurdity, the peak of a New Year's joke. He even wanted to scream in his heart, even if the Yu kingdom collapses and falls apart tomorrow, tonight it will never fall into the hands of that Ning Zhen. If there were a competition for the person who scared their father the most in a year, Ning Zhen would definitely be the champion for 3 consecutive years. The problem was, Shenlang was serious. He said that sentence with an expression as serious as if he were signing a pact with gods and demons, each word like a nail driven into a post. But he was speaking from the heart, bearing his soul, not hiding half a sentence. Most importantly, he had no ambition. He was just planning a way to save his life and protect his wife's family. That's all. Shenlang, you have been honest with me, so I will also be honest with you. Shenlang replied, "Yes, your majesty." The king continued, "I know who stabbed Jin Xiu in the back. Zhuo Yichen, the sworn brother of Xiu Zhaoyan. They are the crown prince's pet dogs, but the real order came from the hidden Yuan society." Hearing this, Shenlang remained silent. Xiu Zhaoyan sticks to the crown prince like glue all day, but she hasn't really committed. But this time, the incident at Xuanwu City where you were framed, and the Court of Judicial Review officials being killed in Ning Zhen's mansion, even if Xiu Zhaoyan was pulling the strings behind the scenes, the crown prince has already turned a blind eye and acquiesced to everything. Shenlang remained silent, his face unchanging. Ning Yuanxian took a deep breath and said, "I know very well the crown prince harmed you. I can completely protect you, but I cannot punish the crown prince. Do you understand?" Shenlang bowed his head and replied concisely, "I understand very well." The protagonist thought to himself, the crown prince is the foundation of the nation. Even the monarch cannot arbitrarily touch the dignity of the crown prince, or the nation will fall into chaos. After a moment, he changed his tone to a sharp one. "You have refused to reconcile with the crown prince and the third prince. But remember, that so-called reconciliation will only last as long as I am still breathing. I am fond of you, but I will not punish my 2 most beloved sons for you. You cannot rely on me to deal with the crown prince and Ning Gai. So who will you rely on? Is it Ning Zheng? Even if the Yu kingdom perishes, I will not pass the throne to Ning Zheng. The 5 officials of the Court of Judicial Review were killed by your concubine, but Ning Zheng took the blame. So that crime is his." Shenlang said one sentence, "Your Majesty, didn't you also once hate me to the bone? Towards the Jin family, didn't you also once grit your teeth and want to wipe out the whole family? So, as the saying goes, people often say harsh words but don't really mean them." The moment the words were spoken, Ning Yuanxian almost spat blood. A surge of emotion erupted in his head. "Someone, come in here and kill this little evil creature for me." "Shenlang, are you addicted to slapping faces? What did you just say? Are you implying that I am fickle, saying one thing and doing another? Very well, if that's the case, then I will kill you, and it will be considered keeping a loyal heart until old age, right?" But then Ning Yuanxian took another deep breath. "I'll endure it. I'll endure it. I'll endure it again." He couldn't lose his temper with a brat who knew how to provoke people like drawing a talisman to tease a demon. But really, in this life, all his patience was almost used up. "If you spout one more sentence of nonsense, be careful I don't smash that pretty little head of yours and count every fold of your brain." Shenlang continued to speak calmly. "My meaning is that your Majesty has never truly understood the 5th prince. So how can you be sure he is not worthy of being the crown prince? How can you say he is not suitable to ascend the throne? As for me, I only want to assist His Highness Ning Zhen, to make him more outstanding than both the crown prince and the third prince, to become the person most worthy of being the monarch of the Yu kingdom. Your Majesty, I am only asking for a chance to prove it to you. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?" The king laughed as cold as ice in the 12th lunar month. "Fine. Then you prove it. But remember a few things. First, if you are my man, and the crown prince or Ning Kai finds trouble with you in the future, I will not punish them, but I will protect you. But if you have chosen to side with Ning Zhen, it means you have jumped into the quagmire of the succession struggle yourself. So from now on, whatever struggle happens, whether the crown prince wants to chop you or Ning Kai wants to kill you, even if you are lying on the ground gasping for breath, I will not save you." Shenlang nodded lightly. "I understand. From the moment I chose to stand with Ning Zhen, the war has begun. His Majesty is now only a referee. From now on, I will do my utmost to help Ning Zhen ascend the throne, so that one day, you yourself will have to nod and admit that he is the one worthy of succeeding." At this point, the king sighed like a late autumn wind, and waved his hand. "Oh, go. I won't keep you." Shenlang bowed politely and prepared to leave, but as he reached the door of the hall, the king's voice came from behind him. "Shenlang, I said earlier that I still owe you a favor. I still keep my word. If you want to claim it, claim it. But remember, only once." Shenlang nodded, his eyes blazing like a torch in the winter sky. I will engrave it in my heart and mind. After the declaration of war in the main hall, Shenlang walked alone into the court of the imperial clan. In the dim light, the scenery was so quiet you could almost cry at the sound of a cricket. He turned his head and immediately saw Muchen kneeling in the middle of the courtyard, looking more pathetic than a lost dog. Seeing Shenlang, he was like waking from a nightmare that had lasted 3 episodes. His eyes sparkled as he called out, "Brother-in-law," to Muchen. His brother-in-law Shenlang was the kind of person who was second to none in heaven and unstoppable on earth. As long as he was back, big problems would become small problems would become nothing, and all troubles would become breakfast. Shenlang walked over and said gently, "Go home. Get a good night's sleep. You've worked hard." Hearing this, Muchen's heart itched as if he had just been slapped with the sentence, "You tried your best, but you were still useless. Brother-in-law, I feel like I'm nothing more than a worn-out broom. I want to help with something meaningful, but in the end, I just ruined the game." Shenlang looked at Muchen with an expression that was either sincere or not stupid and said, "I don't mind a weak teammate. As long as that person is sincere, I will never abandon them." After hearing this sentence, Muchen wanted to cry but didn't dare. The teammate type, I may be a burden, but at least I know how to flap my wings. After that, Shenlang was led to meet the Grand Minister of the court, Ning Yu, the king's own uncle. The prison warden's expression was like he had chronic gastritis. As soon as he saw Shenlang, he frowned as if he had just seen the prospective son-in-law who was once caught sneaking into the princess's bedchamber. Oh, it's that expert debater again. One day he's sleeping in the same bed, the next day he claims to be as pure as Levi's spring water. I hear that and I just want to slap him. Shenlang politely bowed. "Greetings, royal uncle." Ning Yu's face was as hard as a stone statue. He said coldly, "What is it?" Shenlang politely bowed his head and answered concisely, "By the king's order, I am here to visit the 5th prince, Ningjang." Ning Yu narrowed his eyes as if inspecting a fake designer good. "Really?" Shenlang replied without blinking, as calm as a fly. "If you don't believe me, royal uncle can ask the king." Shenlang thought to himself, "It's so late, his majesty is probably already asleep. Are you going to disturb his majesty for such a small matter?" Ning Yu waved his hand as if shooing him away. Go, get it over with." The prison of the court of the imperial clan was even worse than imagined, so bad it made one want to cry. It was even a few notches worse than the notoriously harsh prison of the Court of Judicial Review. Because it hadn't actually held any real prisoners for over 10 years, the entire prison block was now literally damp, dark, and reeked of mold like a rat's nest. On the ground, patches of rat droppings were arranged like a war map. This was a real prison, not a single room with a bed, a mattress, and warm yellow lights. It was even less like the theatrical prisons in novels where you could sing, dance, practice martial arts, and look at your reflection in a broken mirror. This was a dark, damp, and desperate hell. In a dark corner, the 5th prince, Ning Zhen, sat huddled, his face gloomy, his expression summed up in 4 words, sad beyond despair. It was clear he had been framed by the crown prince, yet his father was as cold as stone, saying, "No investigation, no defense, no clarification," and just tossed him in here like sorted trash. There was a time when Ning Zhen thought it would be easier to die, but he swallowed that thought back because there was still someone who hadn't given up on him. And just then, footsteps echoed in the corridor, a rhythm both familiar and steady, like a knock on the door of a sleeping soul. Ning Zhen looked up, and his eyes immediately lit up. "Shenlang, you're back." Shenlang nodded, his voice calm, as if soothing 1,000 grievances. "Yes, I'm back." Continuing from the previous chapter, Shenlang provoked the king to a boiling rage, then went to see the 5th prince. Shenlang's ambition was not small, he wanted to pull both the crown prince and the 3rd prince down from their thrones of contention, dragging them into a vortex of inescapable struggle. And in that chaotic smoke, he would assist the 5th prince, Ning Zhen, to become the new crown prince of the empire. A heaven-defying chess game, a silent coup d'etat, a madman who dared to rewrite the rules of imperial power. The moment he saw Shenlang approach, Ning Zhen joyfully shot to his feet. He let out a sigh of relief, as if a several-ton rock had been lifted from his chest. "Then I am at ease. You can go back and take care of that small family of yours for me. I'll probably be lying here until I'm old." Before he could fully embrace that sense of peace, Shenlang stepped forward, looking at him as if he were about to drag a drowning man ashore. "At ease, my foot. Didn't come here to hand you tissues to wipe your tears, but to drag your corpse out of this mud pit. But there is one thing I need to officially tell you. I hope you are mentally prepared." Ning Zhen confidently puffed out his chest and replied, "More bad news." "Go on, just say it. I'm thick-skinned now. I can handle a few bits of bad news." Shenlang looked straight at him, unblinking, his mouth articulating each sentence clearly. "Listen carefully. Your Highness, the battle for the crown prince's throne has officially begun. The plan is this. eliminate the crown prince, kick out the third prince, and put you on the crown prince's seat. At that moment, Ning Zhen's soul nearly burst from his body. That declaration was like a thunderclap right next to his ear, not just one clap, but an entire storm. All his life, he had only hoped to be a decent person, to protect his few weak relatives back home from being blown away by the wind. And now, sitting in a prison with his head about to be lopped off, he was being promised a promotion to crown prince. He wouldn't even dare to dream that big. What if it took a moment for Ning Zhen to reassemble his soul, which had been drifting towards the heavens? His gaze gradually stabilized, no longer panicked. Shenlang saw this and sighed in relief internally. Because what he needed wasn't a pair of bright eyes full of ambition like those poisonous snakes out there, but someone who still knew fear. Because only when you know fear do you know how to preserve your life. That's why I want to support you. Without further ado, Shenlang went straight to the point. Your Highness, we are now backed into a corner. If we don't strike back now, when will we? Whether the crown prince or the third prince manages to crawl onto the throne, both I and my plump Jin family will just be appetizers. Want to survive? It's easy. There are only two paths. One is to overthrow them before our heads roll. The other is to rebel properly, with organization. And to be honest, Your Highness, you and I are now like two people on the edge of a cliff. The only difference is that I'm being kicked, while you slipped on your own. Ning Zhen nodded slightly, thinking to himself, compared to me, you, Shenlang, still have a way out, as long as you know how to swallow your pride and bow your head. But I am locked up like a stray dog in a cage, waiting to wither away. Not because I committed some great crime, but because I am the superfluous item my father wants to remove from the chessboard. Once he locks you up until you wither away, with no hope of seeing the sun again. And when you're pushed to the brink, what's to fear about those empty titles? But do I really have the ability to be king? I can't just think for myself, I have to think for the country as well. Just as he thought this, Ning Zhen suddenly lowered his voice, hesitated for a moment, and then spoke. Shenlang, do you think I'm fit to be king? Shenlang smiled and replied, fit. Terrifyingly fit, Your Highness. The mere fact that you can ask that awkward question already puts you miles ahead of the bunch who only dream of the throne without understanding how heavy that seat is. To be a worthy king, the first emotion you must have is fear. Anyone who is gleeful about becoming king is like someone gleefully holding a bomb without knowing how to pull the pin. Fear comes from understanding the burden, understanding the blood of the people, understanding that the word nation is a noose always hanging around your neck. As for the cheerful ones, 9 out of 10 will become tyrants. To be an enlightened ruler, you only need 3 things, a bright mind, a broad heart, and a thick face. Do you think your father has all 3? The question had just been asked when a light but meaningful cough echoed from outside. Cough cough. Yunechla thought to himself, this boy Shenlang truly has no restraints. Good thing the one the king sent to record this is me. Otherwise, you'd be toast. Shenlang, inside, glanced in Yunechla's direction and thought, although I'm very grateful to little Yunechla for the reminder, I still have to speak the truth. While Ning Zhen remained silent, contemplating Shenlang's question. After a while he spoke, my father is quite good, isn't he? Yunechla, eavesdropping, his hands busy recording, thought as Ning Zhen continued, His Majesty is doing a good job. This will surely make His Majesty angry. But Shenlang wouldn't let it go, adding fuel to the fire. That's right, His Majesty is doing quite well. He has intelligence, he has willpower, he's clear about love and hate. If he likes someone, he bestows grace. If he hates someone, he'll dig a pit and bury them alive right in front of their mansion. Very fair, very clear, no need to ask again. Yunechla stood there thinking, damn it, how can you even say something like that? Shenlang continued to ramble on, but that personality is actually quite similar to mine. I also like to live life to the fullest. If it suits me, I do it. If it doesn't, I quit. No need to tire myself out. Ning Zhen didn't reply, just frowned slightly as if contemplating an ancient poem. No son would be foolish enough to openly criticize his father, especially when that person wore the emperor's crown. But his silence was an implicit agreement. Because he understood his father was a man of heavy emotions, and light reason. When angry, he'd kill. When happy, he'd bestow rewards. When mad, he'd throw people into prison like expired sacks of rice. But when the water was boiling, he knew how to endure, how to look far ahead, how to take one step back to preserve the bigger picture. Shenlang didn't stop there, leisurely adding a few more words like pouring more wine into a smoldering fire. But Your Highness is different. You grew up in storms, waves crashing in your face without you flinching, winds lashing your back and you still stand. You not only have willpower, but you also have what His Majesty lacks, a heart that knows how to think for others. That point alone already puts you far ahead of His Majesty. In the dark corner, the little eunuch almost burst into tears on the spot, wanting to throw down his brush and run, but his feet were stuck as if glued. If I write these words into the report, I'm dead for sure. If not by execution, then by choking on my own indignation. You sirs can have your cope. Just let this little one live day by day. But life doesn't let you cry, so all he could do was close his eyes and keep writing. Because Shenlang wasn't finished. His voice dropped, his gaze as sharp as a razor on stone. If the crown prince ascends the throne, the third prince's faction will be chopped up like minced meat. And if the third prince ascends, the crown prince's faction will be sent off with a ceremony of complete annihilation. Not a single hair left. Hearing this, the little eunuch nearly spat blood on the spot. Damn, both sides lose. Both factions are dead for sure. What faction am I in then? But if your highness becomes king, both of those factions will at least get to keep their lives to breathe. The moment the words were spoken, the little eunuch outside, his brush trembling like he was writing a memorial in the dead of winter, nearly burst into tears because he knew that sentence was too true, but he didn't dare to nod. Ningen was silent for a while, then sighed like a 30-year-old man who had lived through enough lifetimes. Shenlang, I'm really not a smart person. To be a king, you don't just need a good heart, you also need a calculating mind. Sometimes you have to be as cunning as a snake, as sly as a fox. But I'm a clumsy, awkward person. It takes me 3 tries just to say one smooth sentence. Hearing this, Shenlang almost burst out laughing but managed to maintain a polite demeanor, just letting out a light chuckle as if commenting on a bad play. His voice was sharp, with a slight hint of mockery. Who dares say that? The world is obsessed with so-called emperor's mind arts, worshipping it like a sacred text, as if being a king means you're born with a gene for scheming and trickery. But to be honest, it's all a scam. If it's an art, it can be learned. If you don't believe me, just ask your father. When he was young, wasn't he just a dreamy, dazed youth? It was only after being slapped around that he transformed into an emperor. The king was also just a novice in the beginning. The little eunuch outside heard this and broke out in a cold sweat, thinking, heavens, sirs, please don't kill this old servant with your words, a novice. Are those words you can say, Shenlang? Shenlang leisurely sprinkled more salt on the boiling pot. Whatever kind of king a person is, the court officials will imitate. If the king exterminates families at the drop of a hat, the officials will also learn to purge each other. How the king lives, the court will revolve around it. Your highness has been used to living in narrow cracks since you were young, used to looking at people with a guarded eye, suffered early, experienced life's hardships at his true ability. As for the kind of intelligence that comes from reading books all day in a study, when trouble comes, they'll freeze like statues. Intelligence is about knowing how to live, how to navigate, when to bow your head, and when to hold it high. It's not like you can become king by having beautiful handwriting. Then he paused for a beat, smiling faintly, a smile as sharp as a knife. Do you know what a genius is? It's someone who spends all their waking and sleeping hours plotting against others. To eliminate someone, I start planning 100 days in advance, step by step, like playing chess. I'm not a genius, I'm just a guy who gathers all the little bit of intelligence heaven gave me to do one thing, harm people. And if someone like me were to become king, the world would probably be finished, no need to wait for an enemy invasion. The little eunuch, who had been feeling a chill down his spine, now curled up like a shrimp about to be fried, silently praying, please don't write my name in the report. I'm just a shadow that writes. But Shenlang still hadn't stopped pouring oil on the fire. He continued, his voice dropping, Your Highness, I am a risk taker. That is my bad habit. His Majesty is the same, fond of betting at the last minute, liking to take one gamble to change a lifetime's outcome. But being a king, you can't always walk on a tightrope. You can't just roll the dice every day and hope for a 6. To be a king, you must maintain the righteous path, know when to retreat to advance, know how to choose the path, not the whim. He looked at Ningen, his voice as decisive as a nail driven into a palace pillar. And you are the one most suited for that path. His Majesty is a brave man who once bet the entire chess game to win the country. But this world can only bear one such person in a lifetime. If there is another one, I'm afraid this country can't take it. If the nation's fate is always gambled with lives, sooner or later it will become a game of chance for the world to laugh at. If you want the country to be peaceful, you can't gamble, you have to rectify, clean up, and rebuild from the foundation. The court needs to be scraped clean of its moss, the national strength needs to be built up, and reforms must break the birdcages that people call tradition. Eunuch listened and understood more and more. Shenlang was speaking to Ningen, but in reality, he was advising the king, also explaining the benefits if Ningen were to ascend the throne. And Shenlang was still leisurely, his voice no different from someone preaching philosophy during a windy afternoon tea. Your Highness is an intelligent person. Not the kind of intelligence that calculates shortcuts to win, but the kind of intelligence that sees through people's hearts. The kind that has eaten bitterness, been pushed into a corner, been crushed by the world, and can still stand up and smile. That is what is needed for the throne. You have the ability, and you also have magnanimity. Someone you don't like, if they have talent, you are still willing to use them. That is the biggest difference between an enlightened ruler and a tyrant. One knows how to use talented people, the other only recruits loyal fans, and breaks the bones of those who disagree. As for the so-called emperor's mind arts that the world worships, it's actually just colorful feathers on an ordinary bird. Don't mistake the feathers for the bones. No matter how beautiful a bird is, if it can't fly, it's only fit for the altar. Kings are also just people, not gods. They also eat, breathe, and go to the toilet. The only difference is that they wear a few more layers of brocade, attach a few more gems to their hats, and then the world deludes itself into thinking they are a different species. So please, don't mistake the feathers for the bones. That so-called mind art sounds impressive, but it's really just an accessory. The core of being a person is the heart. The same goes for being a king. Don't abandon the root for the branches. If a person is only good at deceiving and manipulating mind arts but lacks the people's hearts, then no matter how deep their schemes are, they are just a troublemaker in the guise of a righteous person. Shenlang was truly a master at persuading others. At least the little eunuch riding outside was now almost convinced. At this time, the fifth prince said nothing, closing his eyes to reflect on Shenlang's words. If it's really as Shenlang says, then this struggle for the throne is no longer for personal fame and fortune, but for the country, for the common people, and for those who have walked with me through this stormy journey. Should I really step into this quagmire of power for the sake of the world? The fifth prince fell into deep thought for a long time. Shenlang said no more, just stood quietly by his side. A few minutes later, the fifth prince's eyes lit up as if he had thought things through. Ningzhen made his decision in his heart and declared clearly, Shenlang, help me seize the throne. Then, the two shook hands and cooperated. Shenlang said, I will definitely do my best to assist your highness. Eunuchlal, outside, sigh. Why do I have a feeling that the wheel of history is rolling forward? If the fifth prince seizes the throne, won't our kingdom become even more powerful? No, I'm here to record for the king. What am I thinking? I must record the words of these two. That's right, I must record them. More than an hour later, in the rear hall of the imperial palace, Ning Yuanxian, the reigning king, was intently reading the transcript of the conversation between Shenlang and Ningzheng. This transcript was 10 times more audacious than anything Shenlang had ever presented directly to his face. As he read, his forehead twitched. He said, I'm just a pretty good monarch, not qualified to be called enlightened. He said I'm a risk-taker, not walking the righteous path. He said I gamble with the nation's fate like gambling, and sooner or later it will capsize. He said I have intelligence, have willpower, but lack the most important thing, a magnanimous heart. He said the schemes I'm so proud of are actually just colorful bird feathers, external decorations. And the heaviest blow, he said Ningzhen is more suitable to be king than me. Rebellious. It was beyond that. Reading this, Ning Yuanxian trembled as if struck by a poisonous wind. A chill ran down his spine, his vision blurred, and he almost fainted on the spot. For so long, I have been surrounded by empty praise, flattery like the background music of the court. Every victory made me more confident that I was a rare enlightened ruler. And now, one speaks directly. The other silently agrees, and both dare to speak the truth to me. But he is telling the truth. My personality is like that, I can't change it. And only this brat would dare to speak to me like that. Currently, the situation in the Yu Kingdom is truly in peril. The officials are rampant with corruption, the political machinery is as rotten as a broken apple cart, reforms are stagnant, the national treasury is empty, to the point that I owe the hidden Yuan society a huge debt that makes it hard to sleep at night. The legitimate heir is the crown prince. He is very much like me, even more ruthless. He has the ability to suppress the court, control the officials, and keep the world in a state of temporary peace. But precisely because he is too much like me, I'm afraid he will only make this rotten machine slide faster into the abyss. As for Ning Kai, he is too biased towards military generals and the Blackwater terrorists. If he ascends the throne, he will be a tyrant. Even if he doesn't become a tyrant, he will be someone who uses blood to build the foundation of his rule. Even if the Yu Kingdom perishes tomorrow, I will absolutely not pass the throne to Ningzheng. The next day, the sun was high in the sky, but the imperial palace was as quiet as a sheet of paper. The king slept in Consort Bayan's palace until noon before waking up. Consort Bayan, who was 5 months pregnant, was already weak, yet she personally went to the kitchen to cook a few simple dishes for the emperor. When he saw her struggling to carry a small tray up to the hall, Ning Yuanxian frowned slightly. My dear consort, you are pregnant and should rest more. Why are you working so hard? In Ning Yuanxian's eyes, the proud and dignified empress was not his true wife, Consort Bayan was. Consort Bayan smiled, a gentle smile like the early spring sun. Lying down all the time is very boring. I feel restless. A little exercise is better for a pregnant woman. I only made a few light dishes, not too much oil. She spoke as lightly as a cool breeze, but every word was filled with a concern and tenderness that touched the emperor's heart to its core. In that moment, Ning Yuanxian felt a rare and genuine affection that the throne could not buy, a weak woman who dared to quietly use her heart to warm a lonely emperor. But that gentle moment didn't last long before Consort Bayan's face suddenly turned pale. She clutched her stomach, her whole body trembling violently. What followed was a heart-wrenching scene. A streak of bright red blood suddenly gushed from between her legs, spreading across the stone floor like a bolt of tear-stained silk. "My lord." Consort Bayan only managed to call out 2 weak words before her entire body collapsed like a late-season flower breaking from its stem in the wind. Ning Yuanxian rushed over in a panic, holding her in his arms, feeling her body grow colder by the second. "Someone, call the imperial physicians. Save her, quickly." The whole hall was in chaos. Dozens of imperial physicians were summoned like the wind, but one after another, they could only bow their heads and shake them lightly, helpless and dejected. And Ning Yuanxian, who had never prayed before, knelt on the ground, looking up to the heavens and begging, "High heavens, please have mercy. Don't take her away. You have already taken one of my wives. Please don't take her too. I really can't bear it anymore. Ning Yuanxian, vow to do good deeds and accumulate merit from now on. I am willing to reduce my lifespan by 10 years. I only beg you not to take my wife away." A moment later, the oldest imperial physician, with white hair and beard, trembled as he clasped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, this servant has done his best. Consort Bayan has been constantly taking medicine to preserve the fetus, and her body was already weak. Now it has reached its limit. This miscarriage has led to massive bleeding. This servant is truly powerless." The old imperial physician's words were like a cold slash straight through the emperor's chest. Ning Yuanxian roared hoarsely, as if he wanted to tear the heavens apart. "If you cannot save my Consort Bayan, then you will all be buried with her." The old imperial physician was not panicked at all. He slowly knelt down, kowtowed, his eyes as dull as dead embers. "This servant is old and weak, and has long been indifferent to life and death. Even if your Majesty kills me, I can no longer save her." And no matter how tough he was, there were times of weakness. 2 streams of tears flowed down his face uncontrollably. Ning Yuanxian swayed, his whole body reeling, and he nearly collapsed, constantly blaming himself. "It's my fault. It's because I've killed too many people, so heaven wants to punish me. But why choose her? Why Consort Bayan?" In that moment of near despair, as he was about to give up, the voice of the Grand Eunuch, Lejun, rang out. "Your Majesty, quickly summon Shenlang. He cured Zhang Cheng's incurable disease, a disease the entire Imperial Medical Academy gave up on. Who knows, he might be able to turn things around and save Consort Bayan." A ray of light pierced through the thick clouds, tearing apart the dark night in the king's mind. Ning Yuanxian looked up, his eyes blazing with a crazed hope. "That's right, there's still Shenlang. Quick, send the order. Get Shenlang here at the fastest speed." The edict had just been issued, and Lejun couldn't wait for it to be repeated. He spun around like a whirlwind, pulling a few trusted guards with him and rushing out of the palace like lightning. At the same time, in the mansion of the 5th prince, Shenlang was sitting in the study, his head tangled in a mess of thoughts. On the table were numerous drafts, models of the political situation, and secret analyses. His mouth was chomping on a cake as he secretly calculated. He had to be skillful yet seem effortless, leaving no trace of his schemes, yet not making the king feel that Shenlang was forcing his hand. Because to seize the throne, he had to win the king's heart. At that very moment, a whirlwind swept through the corridor. Little Eunuchla rushed in, panting and shouting, "Consort Bayan has had a miscarriage and is bleeding profusely. A 10 parts urgent emergency." Hearing the news, Shenlang's face went as pale as if he'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. Without needing anyone to tell him, he sprang up like a coil, grabbed his medicine box, and ran for his life. Before an incense stick could burn out, he and Eunuchla were at the palace gates, charging straight into Consort Bayan's chambers without even knocking. The moment he crossed the threshold, the scene inside almost made Shenlang vomit. Blood was splashed everywhere, as red as paint, the metallic smell hitting his nose directly. Consort Bayan lay curled up on the bed, her face deathly white, her breath so intermittent that just hearing it was enough to feel despair. She had lost so much blood, her body could only struggle to pull each stream of oxygen into her brain, as if auctioning her life second by second. By the bedside, the king's face was streaked with tears, his features so contorted with grief he was unrecognizable. The once majestic figure had melted into a wax statue under the noon sun. Seeing Shenlang enter, the king asked directly, "Can she be saved? Is there still a chance?" Consort Bayan was still clutching the king's hand tightly, her lips moving as if to utter her last words before the server shut down. But Shenlang didn't answer, nor did he offer any noisy comfort. He just shot a cold glance at the old imperial physician standing beside him, his eyes clearly asking one question, "Hemorrhage. Why couldn't you stop it?" The old imperial physician replied, "Your Highness, the consort took too much fetus-strengthening medicine to keep the weak fetus. The damage was great, and it was inside the abdomen, so the bleeding could not be stopped. Shenlang used his ray vision to scan Consort Bayan's small, still form. He quickly calculated in his head, Consort Bayan is naturally thin and weak, around 40d. The amount of blood in her body is only about 3,000 ml. She has now lost over 1,000 ml. It's a miracle she hasn't fallen into a coma yet. Just then Consort Bayan whispered weakly, my lord. Please tell my elder brother. The 9 counties belong to His Majesty, not to the Bayan family. Don't let that befall them this invasion. Those words were like Consort Bayan's final will and testament. At this, the king could no longer hold back. Sobs broke out in the silent bedchamber. Such a virtuous woman, thinking of the king and the country even at her last moment, even earnestly advising her brother to give up power to avoid becoming a threat to the court. Those dying words were like a sharp knife cutting deep into his soul, making Ning Yuangxian's heart edge to the point of suffocation. Immediately after, Consort Bayan's entire body went limp. Her will gave way, and she fainted in silence, her breath so faint it seemed to have vanished. In that instant, Ning Yuangxian's heart felt as if it had been torn apart. His vision went dark, and his entire body staggered and collapsed, tears streaming down his face as he called her name, my love, my love. His body suddenly went limp, and he fainted. Yunechlal, standing nearby, rushed to support him. Shenlang turned and said, Yunechlal, quickly take His Majesty outside. Without waiting for an order, he directly pulled the king out of the bedchamber as if by heavenly decree. As soon as the door closed, Shenlang immediately activated his ray vision, quickly scanning Consort Bayan's entire condition. The fetus was gone, but a large tear in her uterus was still gushing blood, red as a spring, with absolutely no sign of stopping. Logically, a miscarriage shouldn't cause such severe hemorrhaging. At first, Shenlang suspected that the placenta hadn't completely detached, as that condition often causes heavy bleeding, but the imperial physicians had cleaned it thoroughly, leaving nothing behind. That left only one cause, a clotting disorder. If not treated immediately, it was time to start chanting sutras. Thinking this, Shenlang turned to Princess Ningji, who was still standing there, and said, Princess, from now on, do as I say. The king had specially called her to be Shenlang's assistant, to avoid Shenlang touching Consort Bayan. Without hesitation, Shenlang immediately tore Consort Bayan's clothes, exposing her lower abdomen, and quickly marked the important acupoints. Here, and here too. Then, Shenlang explained each position, the required depth of insertion, and even the angle of each needle to optimize its effect. Princess Ningji did not delay. Her hands moved like lightning, and dozens of silver needles flew out, accurately piercing the vital acupoints. When the last needle went in, most of the blood vessels around the uterus were sealed, and the amount of blood gushing out was visibly reduced. Shenlang breathed a sigh of relief but did not let down his guard. He quickly asked, has Consort Bayan often had trouble with bleeding that's hard to stop? Ningji nodded in response. That one nod was enough for Shenlang to confirm. It was indeed a clotting disorder. According to traditional medical theory, Consort Bayan's constitution was inherently weak, her height and blood deficient. Being pregnant was like challenging the boundary between life and death. Yet she had gritted her teeth and risked it all, just for the desire to have a child, regardless of everything, even pushing herself to the brink of death. Ningji said grimly, what do we do next? Shenlang observed the situation again, his gaze so deep it seemed to want to see through every blood vessel. Although dangerous, it was not yet hopeless. If they could keep her stable, she could be saved without surgery. The problem was, although the wound inside the uterus was mostly sealed, blood was still seeping out. If it continued like this, she would sooner or later lose her life. There was no time to hesitate now, there was only one way. Shenlang's face became serious, his voice ringing out as firm as a battle drum. Consort Bayan has lost too much blood. She needs a blood transfusion immediately. Ningji was startled, unconsciously glancing at Shenlang, her eyes disbelieving what she had just heard. Good heavens, a blood transfusion. But whose blood? A blood transfusion wasn't something you could just do. It required absolute compatibility between the donor and the recipient. Just one mistaken blood type, and the body would immediately reject it, the blood would clot, the vessels would block, and death would arrive in an instant. What if Consort Bayan had an extremely rare panda blood type? Then it was feared no one in this palace could save her. In the modern world, this was as simple as eating a cake. One test kit, and you'd know the result. But here, the concept of blood types had never existed. No one understood what Shenlang was planning. They only saw him take more than 10 tubes of blood from Consort Bayan's body, skillfully separating them into serum, and a diluted mixture of red blood cells with saline solution. Then, Shenlang pricked his own blood and dropped his serum into Consort Bayan's red blood cell sample. If the mixture dissolved smoothly without any reaction, it meant compatibility. If it clumped, it was impossible. The result came quickly. The mixture immediately precipitated, the blood clumping like water-soaked cotton, completely incompatible. Undeterred, Shenlang took Princess Ningji's blood and tested it again, but it was still a thick, mud-like clot. At this point, Shenlang turned and said decisively, "Your Majesty, Consort Bayan has lost a severe amount of blood. If we don't transfer in time, I'm afraid she cannot be saved." The king nearly roared, "Transfuse my blood. Take my blood, now." Shenlang bowed, remaining calm. "I must test it first. If the wrong type is transfused, the reaction is even more terrible than not transfusing at all. Just now, my blood and the princess's were both incompatible, they both caused clotting. This indicates that Consort Bayan has an extremely rare blood type. In theory, a person with type A blood can donate to many people, and AB can receive from all, but Consort Bayan." Shenlang paused, his expression turning grave. The king saw his face darken and asked anxiously, "What is it?" "I've confirmed it," Shenlang said slowly, each word like a stone dropping on their hearts. "Consort Bayan has a blood type so rare that the blood of almost everyone in the world would be rejected by her body." Hearing this, the king immediately became furious. "Find people. Find everyone of noble birth and healthy constitution in the palace for me." The order had just been given, and hundreds of eunuchs spread out everywhere like a swarm of bees from a disturbed hive. In less than half an incense stick's time, the princes and some key figures were all present, except for Ningjang. Everyone understood what was happening. Consort Bayan was the king's most beloved. If anyone could transfuse blood to save her life, they would not only be a hero saving a beauty but could also create a blood tie, a terrifying bond of power between the imperial family and the inner court. It was a life-changing opportunity that could not be missed. The atmosphere in the palace instantly turned into a silent political chess game. Shenlang did not delay. Consort Bayan was so weak that her heartbeat and breath were as faint as a dying oil lamp. Ingji also turned pale and whispered, "Hurry up. She can't hold on much longer." Shenlang nodded, giving her a little ginseng, but absolutely just a little. In this condition, ginseng would cause a strong rush of Kai and blood, making the bleeding worse, but without it, she would fade away forever. Uljun had also returned, bringing blood from each prince. The air in the room was suffocatingly tense. Every eye was fixed on Shenlang, scrutinizing, wary, extremely vigilant. No one said it, but they were all thinking the same thing. If Shenlang deliberately declared someone's blood incompatible to eliminate a political opponent, it would be no different from manipulating fate. Shenlang knew the pressure, but his hand did not tremble. He separated each blood sample, dividing it into serum and a red blood cell mixture, then dropped it into the test sample. In a flash, each test tube reacted identically. Clump, clump, and clump. Shenlang looked at the scene, so shocked his mouth hung open. But business was business. Shenlang quickly reported, "Your Majesty, this blood is also not compatible. The consort's blood is too special. I'm afraid no one here can transfuse blood to her." The entire hall felt as if the air had been sucked out. The king staggered, muttering, "I should have taken care of this earlier." Consort Bayan was weak since birth. When she was born, she also almost died from blood loss. The crown prince suddenly spoke, his voice full of suspicion. "Lord Shen, there are millions of people in the capital. Is it possible that not a single one is a match?" Shenlang shook his head, his voice heavy. "If it were common types like a B or O, it wouldn't be difficult. But now, after testing dozens of people, none are a match. This proves Consort Bayan's blood is so rare that you might not find one in a million people." Consort Bayan was still bleeding slowly, her pulse weakening with each beat. Death was at her pillow, one breath away from being gone. The king stood there, his face pale, his whole body trembling, choked with emotion. "Shenlang, thank you. I know you've tried your best. Perhaps this is fate, karma, the price I must pay. Heaven has already taken one of my wives, now it wants to take Consort Bayan too. It's all my fault." Eunuchla rushed to support the king, thinking to himself, His Majesty has always been so stoic, never admitting fault. And now, in front of so many people, he torments himself like this. It's true that only love can make a person lose all reason. Then the king waved his sleeve, his eyes as dark as a fading sun and moon. "Everyone, Li. I want to be with her in her final moments." Shenlang walked out, each step as heavy as if treading on sin, his face haggard. The others also quietly followed. But just as Shenlang's foot touched the threshold, the king's hoarse voice came from behind him, as desperate as a final ray of light. "That's right, there's one person we haven't tested. There's still one person." Shenlang's steps halted. A name flashed in his mind, Ningjang. The king had already shouted, "Lejun, bring Ningjang here, now." His voice now carried both nostalgia and sorrow. When the consort was born, she almost didn't make it. And Ningjang, since he was little, has had a different fate, as if cursed. I've always felt there was a bond between him and her. "Uljun, go call Ningjang, quick, quick, for me." Shenlang sighed and spoke cautiously, "Your Majesty, the strange phenomena at Ningjang's birth were just symptoms of neonatal jaundice. And the ice falling on the commoner's house was just a coincidence. I can test, but I hope you won't place too much hope, because it's all random, with no scientific basis at all." Moreover, Ning Zhen is completely healthy now, there's nothing special about his body. The king glanced at Shenlang, shook his head slightly, and said, "You don't understand. You may be intelligent, but there are some things you cannot understand." Shenlang found this reasoning from the king to be completely meaningless. Fortunately, the court of the imperial clan was nearby. In less than a quarter of an hour, Le Jun had brought Ning Zhen to the hall. When he entered, the entire room seemed to freeze. Everyone held their breath. A thick, sour, and musty smell flooded in with him like a flood. The weather was hot, and Ning Zhen had been locked in the prison for many days without water to bathe. His clothes were torn, his body filthy, making it hard for people to dare to get close. Shenlang said nothing, just carefully disinfected the vein in his arm with alcohol and drew blood. The blood sample was immediately centrifuged to separate it into serum and red blood cells. Holding the blood sample, Shenlang said, "Your Majesty, the serum has been separated. I will begin the test." Then, Shenlang slowly dropped each drop of serum into Consort Bayan's physiological red blood cell solution. In his heart, there was still a thin thread of hope. Even though reason told him it was absurd, the compatibility rate almost zero. Finding someone who could transfuse blood to Consort Bayan was like diving to the bottom of the sea to find a single golden thread. But then, a miracle happened. The entire hall went silent, no one dared to breathe loudly. In the test tube, Ning Zhen's serum dissolved completely into Consort Bayan's red blood cell mixture. There was no reaction, no clumping, no precipitation, no clotting. Everyone was as if turned to stone. Even Shenlang stood stunned, his eyes fixed on the result unfolding before him. The blood was a perfect match. Even Shenlang couldn't believe this truth. He stammered, "Found it. We found it." Following the previous chapter, after hearing the news of his beloved concubine's critical condition, Shenlang immediately rushed to her side. Using his extraordinary X-ray vision, he quickly discovered the cause was a miscarriage leading to a severe, unstoppable hemorrhage. Without a timely blood transfusion, concubine Bayan would surely perish. However, even the monarch's blood was incompatible, and Shenlang's was not a match either. Over a dozen healthy individuals were tested, all to no avail. The crown prince, the second prince, and the third, fourth, and sixth princes were tested in succession, but none of their blood was compatible. It was only when the fifth prince, Ning Zhen, was tested that a miracle finally occurred. The monarch, Ning Yuanxian, still struggled to believe in this method. His face paled and his voice trembled as he asked, "Shenlang, are you certain that a blood transfusion can truly save concubine Bayan?" Shenlang, momentarily stunned, his eyes still wide with disbelief, slowly nodded as if questioning reality himself. "It is absurd, Your Majesty, but it works." "Then hurry, transfuse the blood at once," the monarch thundered. Without needing further prompting, Shenlang began the procedure with the focus of a seasoned physician. He took out a sterilized glass jar and began to draw blood from Ning Zhen. He calculated that concubine Bayan had lost well over 1,000 ml of blood, and 400 ml from Ning Zhen would be just enough to save her life. Soon, a bottle was filled with the fifth prince's dark red blood. The onlookers turned paler than the patient herself. Eunuch Li Jun thought to himself that losing so much blood would surely cause the prince to faint and deplete his vital energy. "Your Majesty, I will begin the transfusion now," Shenlang announced anxiously. He attached the tube to concubine Bayan's vein, and the room fell silent, holding its breath. The monarch's eyes were wide, a vein throbbing on his forehead as he watched each drop of blood enter his beloved's body like a life-saving elixir. Time crawled by. An hour passed in complete silence. Then, a miracle unfolded. Color returned to concubine Bayan's pale face, her breathing steadied, and her heart began to beat strongly once more. Though still unconscious, her vital signs had clearly stabilized. Check on her at once," the monarch commanded. The old imperial physician, Yun Hua, scrambled to her side, his hands trembling as he felt for her pulse. A moment later, overcome with emotion, he collapsed to his knees, kowtowing repeatedly. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. Concubine Bayan is alive. She's truly alive." A wave of astonishment swept through the hall. All eyes turned to Shenlang, the man who had seemingly performed magic, pulling a life back from the brink of death. For old physician Yun Hua, this was nothing short of a miracle. He was immensely grateful. Had the concubine died, all the imperial physicians would have been buried with her. Shenlang scanned concubine Bayan's body again with his ray vision. Fortunately, her body's natural clotting ability had begun to work. Otherwise, a hysterectomy would have been necessary, a procedure impossible under the current conditions and one for which Ning Zhen's blood would not have been enough. Ning Yuanxian coldly ordered everyone to leave, keeping only Shenlang, Princess Ning Zhen, and the old physician. Shenlang then whispered to the eunuch, "Eunuch Li, please take Ning Zhen to freshen up." Li Jun quickly led the prince away, fearful that more blood might be drawn. "Your Majesty," Shenlang said with a bow, "we will await your command outside." Once outside, the usually stoic physician Yun Hua, after 30 years of practice, bowed deeply with tears in his eyes. This junior, Yun Hua, kowtows to young Master Shen for saving my life. Shenlang, exhausted, waved him off. Senior, you exaggerate. I dare not accept such praise. Please, get some rest. He acknowledged that the physician's initial skills were not poor. He had handled the removal of the placenta cleanly. The true issue was the patient's congenital bleeding disorder and the deep, internal bleeding point, a challenge impossible to overcome without Shenlang's unique ability. Just then, Yunech Lijun approached, nudging Shenlang and leading him to a quiet corridor. You have achieved a great victory today, the eunuch said in a low voice, but remember, fortune and disaster walk hand in hand. The circumstances are too perfect. Everyone else's blood was incompatible, yet Ningzheng's was a perfect match. Some will conspire that you orchestrated this entire drama to make the fifth prince a hero and secure his position. Shenlang sighed. They might even say I intentionally harmed the concubine to create the opportunity to save her. It is good that you understand, Li Jun nodded. I will remain by His Majesty's side and do what I can to quell any slander. With a sigh about the weakness of human hearts, the eunuch returned to his post. Shenlang, utterly spent, fell asleep the moment he lay down. He awoke to daylight and eunuch Li's prodding. His Majesty summons you to see concubine Bayan. Inside the room, Princess Ningji anxiously asked, can the silver needles be removed? As the bleeding stopped. It has, Shenlang confirmed. Remove them one by one. As Ningji carefully removed each needle, there was no new bleeding, and the concubine's complexion remained stable. The next steps, Shenlang thought, were to administer anti-inflammatory medicine and drain the remaining stagnant blood, a task best left to the experienced physician Yun Hua. Why has she not woken up? Ning Yuangxian asked, his face haggard from a sleepless night. She was in a coma from a lack of oxygen to the brain, Shenlang explained. She needs rest. Rest assured, Your Majesty, she will awaken in 2 or 3 days. A wave of relief washed over the monarch. Does she need another transfusion? He asked. No, Shenlang stated firmly. The fifth prince has given enough. More would harm his health, and her body will now begin to produce its own blood. The monarch had considered taking more of Ningzheng's blood as a precaution, but seeing Shenlang's resolve, he relented. Truly no more is needed. Ning Yuangxian confirmed one last time. That is correct, Shenlang affirmed. The monarch then gave a chilling order. Li Jun, return Ningzheng to his detention in the imperial clan court. A cold silence fell over the room. Ningzheng, who had just saved a life, was being sent back to prison without a moment's reprieve. It was a harsh, cruel decision. Yet, Shenlang remained silent, offering no words of protest. Find a quiet room for young Master Shen to rest, Ning Yuangxian commanded. And so, Shenlang was given lodging in the palace, a familiar reward for his life-saving deeds. The monarch held his daily court, but it was brief. He was preoccupied with countless pressing matters, the war with the southern kingdom, the rebellion in the Lijiu archipelago, the power vacuum in the western province, and an impending visit from the Chu state's envoy. Yet, he dismissed the court quickly, rushing back to the harem, hoping to be there when concubine Bayan opened her eyes. At dusk, she finally stirred. Seeing her awake, Ning Yuangxian's eyes reddened with emotion. Tears streamed down concubine Bayan's face as she offered a weak, bitter smile, mourning the child she had lost. You're awake, the monarch choked out. Thank heaven. Concubine Bayan felt a deep sense of embarrassment. Believing she was dying the night before, she had made some bold, final confessions and was now mortified to be alive. They held hands in silence. Was it Shenlang who saved me? She whispered. I feel I have wronged him. You were not wrong, Ning Yuangxian insisted. He simply wished to stay out of the court's intrigues. He added irritably, that boy. Shenlang is arrogant. Don't you dare thank him when you see him. He doesn't care for such words and it will only inflate his ego. Soon after, Shenlang and physician Yun Hua entered. After a thorough examination, Shenlang declared her stable. She is well. Now she only needs rest. Physician Yun Hua is far more skilled in post-operative recovery, so I will leave her in his care. As Shenlang took his leave, concubine Bayan smiled faintly. Shenlang, thank you. Startled, Shenlang turned to the monarch and bowed. It is this subject's duty. The monarch sighed in exasperation, thinking, I told her not to thank him. Upon returning to the fifth prince's residence, Shenlang was greeted by the sound of sobbing. Yu Seixi and Yukiki, 2 young ladies who had been sent away, had finally returned. They rushed to him, clinging to his legs and crying, Uncle, we promise we'll be good. Please don't send us away again. Shenlang embraced them, knowing only time and affection could heal their trauma. His Highness Ningzheng saved the concubine's life, his attendant Xiaobing said. Why did he not return with you? Shenlang smiled faintly. Patience. The real storm has yet to arrive. As Eunuch Li Jun predicted, the capital was soon buzzing with rumors. The news of the transfusions spread like wildfire, and conspiracy theories blossomed. He must have rigged it, People whispered in tea houses. He made sure only Ning Zhen's royal blood would work, all to make him a hero and absolve him of his crimes. The public's mood turned to outrage. So Ning Zhen beats a man to death, but he gets a free pass because he donated some blood. Does justice mean nothing? Even respected scholars began to speak out, arguing that if a good deed could erase a capital crime, the law itself was meaningless. Then, an even more vicious rumor began to circulate. Shenlang's subordinate, Shizhen, rushed in, panicked. Master, they are saying you caused the concubine's miscarriage. That you armed her just so you could be the one to save her. Shenlang remained perfectly calm. You see, the source of this rumor was the most unexpected of all, concubine Bayan's own nephew, Bayan Nian. Filled with rage, he spread the story that Shenlang had orchestrated the entire tragedy. This man is vicious, he claimed. Remember Lu Gang, the king of the Jun tribe? He also died at Shenlang's hands. The situation was already heated. Very well, Shenlang thought to himself. If they wish for a feast of intrigue, then I shall set the table.